Are you tired of fighting the same old dragons over and over again? Wouldn't you rather fight a new family of dragons? Or better yet, wouldn't you rather play as a new dragon species in your 5e or Pathfinder game? Well, now you can. Roll for Combat, the creators of the incredibly popular Battlezoo Ancestries dragons, have done it again with Battlezoo Secret Dragons. This collection of 4 dragon books introduces new families of dragons to the world of 5e and Pathfinder. Now you can play as, or fight, the dragon you never knew you needed. Inside each book, players will find complete rules for playing as one of these new unique dragons, allowing them to unleash new abilities and powers never seen before. Meanwhile, GMs will find pages of monster stats, allowing you to pit these new creatures against your players. Each book features one new family of dragons filled with extensive, in-depth descriptions of their powers and abilities, background and history information, world lore, illustrations, and more to help you introduce these new dragons into your 5e or Pathfinder games. Experience the world of Battlezoo Secret Dragons through 4 new books. Fairy dragons are connected with the Fey realm and love to play pranks and cause mischief. That is, when they aren't conspiring with the courts of the Fae. Misfit dragons are hot, magical messes of magical energy, constantly shifting their physical forms, phasing in and out of existence, or simply releasing random wild magic effects. They're quite a handful. Leshy dragons are deeply connected to nature, allowing them to grow alongside different types of plants, fungi, and leshies. Oh yeah, and they're master chefs as well. And finally, the powerful battle dragons are obsessed with the thrill of combat. Battle dragons love hunting foes, dueling opponents, or commanding their legions to glorious victory. Head over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com now to secure your copies of Battlezoo Secret Dragons and become the dragon you were always meant to be.
We're live. Look at that.
Hello.
We are here on April Fool's Day. A weird day because it looks like a lot of people are out. A lot of people are still celebrating Easter or traveling. Or this is a weird day. But I am home. I'm actually all by myself. There's no one here. It's just me and the dogs. So I'm like, I'm going to do a stream because there's nothing else to do. Right, Mark? What else do we have to do besides
Everything, Steve.
I know. So I'm launching a Kickstarter and putting out fusions and putting out updates to almost all of our boundary modules, and we're releasing Battlezoo. What is it? The Battlezoo Indigo Isles is coming out now. We're shipping that this week, and it's just another week, another day in the life of Roll for Combat, where we're doing way too much.
Okay, it's not just any day for Roll for Combat. Even for us, today is a wild and outrageous day that is overflowing with stuff. You also forgot gargoyles. You named all those things.
I totally forgot that gargoyles came out today.
Yes.
Oh my god.
The fact that today was this much of a nightmare has been haunting my dreams for like multiple months, and has influenced exactly how many things I've done for like multiple other weeks. But we got it and it worked.
More or less. There's a few hiccups, but
Yeah,
I wasn't even here. I finished this all last week because I was traveling. So I had to come back and just press some buttons and pray and hope that it worked. So I think everyone should do that. Anyhow, we got Hannah. And Hannah is actually contributing to the dragons. Are you sure you want to contribute to the dragon books, Hannah?
I have never been more sure about anything ever in my entire life.
Oh my God. That is frightening.
That's a very appropriate answer to Steven, though, because Steven's always like, oh, look at the name of this stream. The best ancestry ever is the name of this stream. Is it really? I don't know. It's a really cool ancestry. But there's a lot of ancestries. And Steven will name it the best ever.
It's the best. Best around. Never gonna get you down. All right. So we have a couple things on this weird stream. Is that we'll talk about dragons, talk about the new dragons. We'll talk to Hannah, who's going to be writing some lore for some of the dragons, and
Yeah.
she's doing some Fey dragons, some Feywild dragons. So you're going to go to invent and go crazy and give us all these crazy ideas for what Feywild dragons do in the wild.
Yeah, because the dragons were written by Jessica Catalan, but Hannah is going to write a roughly 8-page section that contextualizes them into the world of the Fae, so that you can understand, the way these dragons fit in.
What's a fairy dragon without a fairy realm?
Yes, that's right. And then we'll also talk about, I was so excited for this, Battlezoo Ancestry Fusions, where you can all play one party in one body. Can you imagine all 4 of you inside of a Hydra just walking around? It's gonna be glorious. I can't wait. I want to play this.
So many people have been saying they want to do a one shot or something where everybody is just playing a Hydra together.
Yeah.
Somebody said they wanted to do like a spawn of Tiamat, like how Baldur's Gate has a spawn of Baal, where the characters are a 5-person party that are a 5-headed dragon, one of each color, or something like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, if things go well, we have plans. We could maybe expand it to 5 or even 6 players, because there's Voltron. There's a lot.
So there's Voltron with 5,
right,
where you do a giant robot. You can also do like a Chimera for another 3-headed option. That's like where they're asymmetrical, and you have to decide whether you're the goat, the lion, or the dragon head.
So some content. So it's interesting. There's so many people who, a lot of people did, they said they backed it, and then they read that's what you're the people I like, the ones who just said, oh, look, and they just back it, and then they read what it is. Like, what's in this book? I don't even know. A lot of people actually have been asking what is in the books, because some people thought it was just player focused, but it's not. It's
everything.
It has well, what does it have in Mark? It has, well, first of all, let's back up 1 second. Is that each of these books is going to be just a little bit smaller than the Dragon book. I don't think none of them are going to get as big as the Dragon book, but they're going
to be a bit smaller.
A bit smaller, but not really. The Dragon book's only 120 something pages, so
yeah. So these are a bit smaller, but they're not far, and there's 4 of them, so it's a lot of content,
right? But
and
the point
each of them introduces a brand new family people have never seen before.
Right. The
reason we had 45 dragons in that first book is because they were all dragons that already existed. And so all we did was be like, well, they can be eternal sometimes, and here's how. And that still took 128 pages to do. But here, it takes like closer to 100 to be like, here's a new family of dragons, here's all the lore, here's context from Hannah or the original author in some of them, or we have Val from Corkboards and Curiosities who's doing one of the other ones, and here's that context for them. Here's a story about the dragon researcher Calazandrax who's going to look for these dragons, and then here's also stat blocks for these new dragons. We've got young, adult, ancient, great worm, more context on those great worms, player rules for eternal dragons of all those types. Plus, this is also where the stretch goals will go in an appendix at the back. And so that is basically what's going on with these products. So there's all these dragons.
And you forgot the art.
oh, yes. The art it goes without saying that the art is like ridiculously good.
Yes.
It's beautiful.
There's a ton. And that's the thing. I've actually been doing this recently because I'm looking at some other books. Not that I'm throwing shade, but a lot of them don't have that much art. And like
it's not on them. Art's expensive. I understand why those other books.
I'm not throwing
art.
shade. Yeah. But like the Eldamon book had so much art that I wanted to make sure every single Eldamon was in the book, that I literally had to fit them in at the end in the orc or the OGL. So whatever Eldamon didn't fit in the actual book, this 350 page book, I had to fit them in, and there's like a montage of the rest of them. So it's like we barely get all the dragons in. That's the thing. It's like this 100-page book, and we'll barely have enough room for all the dragons. So anyhow, there we go. So we're going back and forth because we have dragons, we have fusions, but I can show the actual fusions. So you can get, so what the heck are we talking about? So every April Fool's, we release a brand new free ancestry for Pathfinder and 5e now. And 2 years ago, Hannah, have you heard the story?
Mm-hmm.
You have heard the story of 2 years ago?
You've given me a little bit, but I would love to hear it again.
Okay. So 2 years
ago. It was a pretty outrageous occurrence.
2 years ago.
It all started when Ginny D.
Okay.
Just as a throwaway line in one of the commercials that she did
for Dragons,
Dragon
by the
book.
Way.
Yeah, for Dragon, she had like the Ginny D argues with herself as multiple different characters, and the GM was like, I don't know if I'm going to let you play Dragons, and the player's like, come on, they balanced it, they know what they're doing, and then the player convinces the GM to do it. And then at the very end, like a third character, a second player comes in and is like, oh, well, can I play a dungeon then? And then that's like the final line of the skit. Or it's like, I want to talk to you about playing a dungeon, may have been exactly what the character says. So that kind of sat there for a while. And then suddenly, on the 31st of March, Steven says to me, hey, let's do an April Fool's product. Or maybe in the 30th.
No, it was the 31st.
No, it was the 31st. That's right.
It was the 31st.
We did it entirely on
in the
April
afternoon,
1st.
The day before April
16
Fool's.
hours the next day, writing it, working with Steven as he laid it out, waking up really early, but we got it out on April 1st. And basically, we just kind of created one of those game jam dares that people do, just like not necessarily intentionally. Steven is just like, we have to do it today because this is the 31st. This is the day before, and somehow that product got out, and it was Battlezoo Ancestries Dungeons, and you could just be a dungeon. That can be you. So then last year we did Other Worlders, where you can play literally yourself or one of your friends. One person said they wanted to each play each other in the game group, where they, I would play Steven and Steven would play Hannah and Hannah would play me or something like that. And that was basically you're sent into a fantasy world and you have cheat abilities. And so this year is Fusions, where you're all working together to play a Cerberus or a Hydra or a two-headed giant with other players. And it's multiple characters. So your two-headed giant one head might be me and it's a wizard, and the other head might be Steven and it's some kind of like shady bard who is trying to like trick the rest of the party. And my wizard is like, don't listen to my other head, Steven. He's always telling you all these things.
Mm-hmm. And so the first one we released, it was literally just a PDF for Pathfinder, and we did get the module out for Foundry.
Eventually. And we did a 5e
we got it that
eventually.
Day. We got it that day. It was later that day. It was later on the first.
Yeah, it was very late in the day. It was so late that it was like the day was almost over by then.
Well, it got done. And so, but last year we planned a little better, and we had the Pathfinder and the 5e version.
Yes.
And some tokens.
Partially, I just wrote the 5e version last year for Other Worlders, for a lot of it anyway, because of the fact that we needed it quick and we didn't have enough time to get it to our 5e conversion.
But this year, because we planned well ahead of time, we got the Pathfinder version, we got the 5e version, we got tokens, we got animated tokens, we have the Path Builder out, we have the Foundry module out for both Pathfinder and 5e, which is free, and Alchemy RPG is just about ready to release Battlezoo Ancestries Fusions for free.
Is it going to make it for April 1st?
He's writing me right now. I just sent him the logo. He said he's finishing it up, and he's going to send it out, so you'll be able to get it for Alchemy as well, totally for free. So how about that? So this year we went all aboard, and we start planning for next year. But I figured we could talk about fusions, and maybe Hannah could be the audience and ask about it, and because you haven't really looked at it. Or maybe you have some questions. I just sent it to you. That's fine.
You did.
Yeah, I sent it to you.
Cover art.
I sent it to you like 5 minutes before. Oh no, I sent you a zip that has everything in it.
I did open the zip, but I only fully opened the cover art.
Oh, there you go.
And it looks great.
Well, I thought maybe we can go through it, and maybe you could explain it. And then if anyone has any questions, because I imagine playing 2 or 3 or even 4 characters in a single body might be a little weird. So I figured you might have some questions or figure out how the heck do you do this. So I have it open. And I have both the Pathfinder and the 5e version, by the way, Mark. So
yeah, we tried to cover the corner cases. There actually were fewer corner cases for this than there were for playing Intelligent Weapons.
Oh, no, Intelligent Weapon was way harder
Intelligent
than
Weapons,
this.
because you're the weapon and you may or may not have an additional body, but it's one character, was very, very challenging in corner cases. Whereas having multiple characters who share the same body is complicated, and there's a lot of rules tech to be created in there. But once you make it, it kind of works. Whereas Intelligent Weapons, even after you make it, there's so many other things that you have to look out for.
Yeah, and if you want to download Fusions free, you can just get it at Kickstarter. Rollforcombat.com. It's in the middle of the Kickstarter. It's a huge graphic. Just press the button, press the graphic, and it comes.
If you see the story on the left side, there's bookmarks, and you can hit the special April Fool's Day free download on that, and that will take you like pretty much right to it. And then you can click the link to download on there, and that will give you Fusions for free. You don't even have to make a Battlezoo.com account this time.
Well, eventually it'll go on Battlezoo, but for now it's just there.
But for today, you don't have to.
That's right.
And if you're watching this live, if you're watching this later, you probably should go to Battlezoo.com, because that's probably where it is.
It's probably in where you can get the other ones. So how does it work? Give us the general overview of like how does it work where 2, 3, or 4 people are in the same body?
Okay, so basically the idea is they are just flat out separate characters. The rules treats them as such. If one of them looks at a Medusa and gets turned to stone, that head is turned to stone. The others can keep going in general. Now, there are a few differences. There are things called combined actions, which are like combo moves, like an Omega Beam, where everybody works together and does this gigantic thing that does an obscene amount of damage. But it looks like it's completely unfair. I think in Pathfinder 2, it does 40d12.
40d12, not 4d12.
40d12.
40d12, which on average is about 240 points of damage.
Yes. And that seems obscene, but it did require 4 entire characters to work together to use it for a once-a-day ability. And it's actually not.
But the beam is also, it's 20 feet wide and 300 feet long. So yeah, it hits everything, man. You know what? It is literally the wave motion cannon.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is. That's what it is. Now, you actually get some of these combo feats for free, because everybody in the fusion has to have the combined feat to use it together. Now, the reason you get them for free, just flat out for free, it doesn't even cost your ancestry feats, is because there is a drawback that you have, which is that since you have a shared body, the one thing that is shared is where you're going. You have to work together on that, because those actions are also combined. Movement, when you decide to move, it costs everyone. So if somebody's like, I want to move 30 feet west, well, that's going to cost everybody the action to move 30 feet west in Pathfinder 1 or Pathfinder 2, or in 5th edition, will cost everybody 30 feet of their movement for that round to go there. And so you will run out, or people might not want to, someone might not want to move at all. And you're going to have to decide together. And that's a bit of a drawback for sharing the body. And so in exchange, you just get several free feats as you're leveling up. And There's also a bunch of them that are actually pretty strong feats too, because it makes up for the fact that coordinating is actually not always easy. Now, if you're just playing it yourself, maybe it's easy to coordinate and you can just min-max it out there. There's a note there for the GM that if your players are like god tier coordinators, that like maybe you can consider giving fewer free feats. But I don't think that's going to happen very often. I think that more likely it's going to be fair with the extra feats. And so also because movement is shared, that also means if somebody gets stuck in a spider web and they can't move, nobody can move because you have one pair of legs that's moving around in the spider web. So other than that, though, you're separate. And there is a combined action that's like Power Rangers Voltroning, where you can split off your four-headed Hydra into 4 just kind of big snakes with one head. And or split your Cerberus into 3 doggies who each have 1 head or something like that. And that way, if you do want to walk separately from the rest of your team and you need to, then you can. You just can't use your like Omega Beam and other combined actions when you're separated.
So then when they're all in one, I only know 5e. So would they be rolling the same initiative or different initiative?
So they have their own initiatives, but across the round, they have to share the lowest in 5e, the lowest person's amount of movement. So in 5e, if somebody has 50, somebody has 40, and somebody has 30, basically, or it's not that they quite share the lowest amount of movement, but once you've moved 30, that gets deducted from everybody. So let's say the guy with 50 movement goes first and moves 30 feet to the west in 5e. Then the one with 30 movement goes second and cannot move at all. Then the one with 40 movement goes third and she can move 10 feet north or something like that. And then that's how it works in 5e. In Pathfinder 2, you commit an action to it and you can have the most favorable possible person take that action. So it could be someone with a fly speed if you want to fly, or it could be someone who's like a monk and is going to use a random like key ability in order to go 80 feet for one action because they did the thing that says use 1 to go twice at 40 feet each because you're a monk. So that's basically how it works, but it is shared. It's a shared resource for them. And that restriction is what allows them to get power-ups for free. So it's especially problematic for you if you and your fellow people in the fusion do not want to be in the same place. Like if one of them is the barbarian who wants to charge straight into the front, and the others are like the backliners, they're like, oh wait a minute. Whereas it's very, very powerful if like your whole team are like ranged characters or casters, or maybe one of them is a monk or something like that for movement.
So can you actually break yourself up? Say you're like, I like to like once in a while join forces with my buddies, but not all the time. So
yeah, you can. That I told you about that combined action. You could just be, if you think that your group is gonna your buddies are gonna cause you issues, for your free first level combined feat that you get for being a fusion, pick the one that lets you. It's called Let's Split Up, Gang. And pick Let's Split Up, Gang, and then just split up by default. It lasts forever until you recombine, and then you can just be split up if you want. But like at that point, like you're playing like a dog with chains coming out of it instead of a Cerberus. If you do that for the entire game and you never combine, then I question like, did you have to be playing the fusions instead of something else that was just like a chain dog? And maybe the answer is yes, you did, because you had the option to summon the Megazord, but you don't always need the Megazord.
yeah.
So then I'm wanting to know how a Cerberus would be a monk. That's my next question.
Okay, so Cerberi are often like very like faithful and they guard particular areas, often for otherworldly beings. So I think that when you're a Cerberus and you're standing in front of the gates of Hades or something like that, you probably have a lot of time to ponder philosophy and meditate. I mean, there's not much else you could do. So I could easily see wanting that one of the heads of the Cerberus, like somehow joining a monastic order and developing martial arts techniques that they use with like their head and their little chains that are coming out that they can control in order to attack.
Well, I
Okay.
think the fun part about this is that you guys can come up with your own reasoning. Maybe they were all separate characters at one point, and then they all got cursed and became a Cerberus or became a Hydra or a two-headed giant. You know, there's that's actually a Simpsons episode where the Homer and his boss are joined together as one person. So you could have that. It's like, oh, you have like that's a great sitcom right there. It's like you have two people who don't like each other, and then they get sentenced in fantasy court, fake court, to live the rest of their lives together, and then boom, two-headed ogre, and they're like, oh, and then they have to learn how to. It's like the Odd Couple, except you're all in one body. It just writes itself, man. You could do so much with this. But my favorite.
No, I could see that is if you like ask like a very wicked Fey Lord or a monkey's paw. It's like somebody who has an unrequited crush. It's just like, I wish that they and I would be together forever.
Exactly.
And they're like, well, your wish is granted.
Right, and you literally are together forever. I actually like this for there's a service. I like this for monsters. Is that boy? You see, I feel like that's one thing that Pathfinder sort of misses right now. Not that you couldn't do it, but the mythics, like mythic monsters, were really strong. Like they were interesting too. Like mythic monsters were pretty interesting. But if you made a Cerberus or a Hydra like this, where it's really 4 characters in one, and then they do Omega Beam on you or something, like this is like a really scary encounter because you're like, oh, it's a Cerberus. I'm like, yeah, but it's 3 it's 3 doggies in one. So it's really like, like how would that work actually? I wonder, would that be like if you're level 10 and you face a Cerberus, would it be a level 10 Cerberus? Would you face a level 8 Cerberus? I'm wondering about the balance.
If you wanted to face something that literally had Omega Beam.
Well, that's level 17, so.
Sure. Then like you might be a level 18 party, and that one Fusion Hydra would count as 4 level 17 opponents. So it would be a severe encounter.
But possible.
I could see this being like an adventuring party that got in a bad situation if they were a monster and they were cursed in this way and are now forced to guard like the party's main goal.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Now I'm only asking only because my guys are, they're level 16, about to turn level 17. So I might be asking you, Mark, totally as a thought experiment for you to write up the monster stat block for me so I could try it out, see how it might work on them.
I'm just gonna say this, but while you also easily could throw 4 monsters that individually did 10d12, and that's a completely allowed encounter. In fact, it's not even that hard of an encounter at that level. Doing 40d12 and doing it all at once against the PCs could definitely be a lot. Just saying, there's a reason I made the critical failure not do double damage on that one.
Yeah. 2 would die outright. Yeah. 2 of them will be fine. But, it doesn't just take that, because they were in a fight and the healer went down, but he had Breath of Life. So there's a lot of lawyers. When you're at level 17, 18, they didn't really. It's like, okay, they're dead, and they came right back. It's like Breath of Life automatically kicks off. They do some emergency heal. They're literally back to max the very next turn, and then they run out of the way, and then they all learn. Like, I don't know, at least with my guys, like if they're in a line, they see that, they immediately will scatter. They'll heal up, scatter, regroup, and then bam, attack the next round. Like they're very good at figuring that stuff out. But
I mean, that's pretty fair. Plus, also just like the ones who have a base 10 hit die would probably have 250 or more hit points, so they would survive 200. They would survive 240 by the skin of their teeth.
Yeah, the monk has 250 right now at level 16. So at level 18.
Yeah, it's gonna probably have 270. The monk, I'm guessing, that has, level 19. Toughness,
or maybe even level 20.
Like
maybe I'll even do it at level 20. But level 19, 20, I'll do it. But I got
It's easy for DMs to just change that dice count or change the amount.
Oh, no,
If
no,
they
no,
just
no,
want to
no.
do this for a level party.
No. We do all of our
Doesn't have the
rolls.
same flair, but
We do all of our rolls in public. There's
But Hannah's not saying that you have to fudge it. She's saying you could adjust
like
the monster.
lower it.
No.
You could
Like
make
for
a
a lower
weaker
level
version.
party.
Oh, well,
It's a baby.
Okay. You can weaken it. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, no,
You can
do
weaken
that.
it intentionally
Yeah.
in advance, not
Yeah.
nerfing it like after the fact, and weakening it in advance, knowing that your party's not ready for the full experience yet.
Exactly. And then when
Yes.
they meet the big boy later on, they're scared because they met the child version. They didn't even realize it.
Well, that's what's happening now. So, you mentioned this, but here's the funny part. So they're in an adventure. It's a pre-written adventure, and they're at the end where they're escaping a dungeon that is in another dimension, and they have to go through. The only way to get out is through a storm. It's basically on the water, and they have to jump into a whirlpool to get out. Now they have water walking and water breathing on them, so they can basically jump on the water and fight like normal if they wanted to, but it's guarded by. And someone is an Austin Powers fan because it is a 3-headed shark octopus that shoots lightning out of its head, which is basically laser beams. It's the shark with the laser beams. And we're all like, it's Austin Powers! It's Shocktopus! But here's the funny thing. The encounter is they encounter 3 in a row. First they encounter the weakened one, then they encounter the regular one, and then they encounter the strong one, and what's it called when it's not weakened? The opposite, empowered or whatever it is. When they're one
Elite?
level above. What's that?
The elite
Elite.
creature?
They encounter the elite one. So that's exactly what's going to happen, because they're going to fight the first one. They'll be like, oh, this is easy. And then the second one will appear. Like, wait a second, this one's not so easy. And then the third one will appear. They're like, okay, we're getting our asses handed to us.
So then this makes me think, okay, if you can play a dungeon, when can I play a Sharknado?
That's a good question.
Oh, maybe that's next year's.
When can you play a Sharknado?
That might have to be next year's. I don't know. We actually came out with so all 3 of these we've known about for a while, because the fusions we've known about for a few years.
Or the fusions you specifically asked me about.
Well, we were thinking
March of 2023.
Well, we were
when
thinking
you said fusions.
of including this in like one of our Battlezoo Ancestries classic creatures,
or it was
of.
in Year of Legends, sort of.
Yeah.
But you had also already pitched it for April Fools by then.
Yeah,
So
I was thinking, well, we could still put it into another one of those, and we have a lot more to expand this, because you can go to 5-headed, 6-headed, so we can keep going.
And there's others in the same head category,
Right.
like Chimera.
Right. So we
Yeah.
can expand this, and that's what we did with Dungeons. So we have the plan. Like, Otherworlders doesn't really work for
I
this.
could see it if Year of Legends, for example, got a compilation hardcover. Part of that one's campaign could be an expanded fusions, for example.
Yeah, we can. Oh, it's a good idea.
We've talked about it
Yeah.
before, you and I.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So there is a super chat from Khadgar 4606 from Turkey. Same country as our artist for all the dragons.
Sure.
Although maybe not all of the dragons in Secret Dragons,
Well,
but
all the Eldamon.
all the Eldamon and all the original dragons. So
Yes.
the question
That's a new
is
one.
a big question. If you have an Eldamon trainer fusion and they phase out for their Eldamon, what happens to the other heads? So that one's a pretty interesting one because of the fact that normally they wouldn't be able to move. However, I would say, like with petrification, that just like that head is phased out and the rest of the body moves. And yes, this is actually a mechanical advantage for them in some ways, but they do still have to pay the actions when the body is moving. So it will hamper their Eldamon's ability to move because it's not moving the Eldamon. So I think they lose just as much as they gain for being able to, maybe even more, for the ability of being able to move where they are, which most trainers can't do. The Eldamon's going to have a lot of trouble actually getting into place. So you could come up with your own rules for like forcing them to split out with Let's Split Up gangs so that they don't lose and gain that if you want. But I think by default, using petrified as an example, they would just be like a phased out head that can't do anything on the rest of the body that isn't phased out.
By the way, what was I gonna say? I wanted to mention something while I have everyone. So some people have been asking about the special edition cover because they're like, it doesn't do justice the pictures, but this is what it'll look like. And if you see, it has, and you can see it kind of, oops, let me do it here. Like you can kind of see, it's like, it's got the gold, and then if you see there, you can see the UV, there's like UV ink on the background. So we're going to be doing that with all the dragons. Also, these are not even close to being finished. Like the ones that you see now, this is like the first pass. Like there's going to be a lot more detail added because people were like, well, they're not so sure. This thing in person is very impressive. Like even I was like, holy crap, because it really pops. The colors pop. And I think this is going to be our new standard for all of our special edition covers going forward. Always black, always with this like bordering, and then always with a picture in the middle. And right now we've been doing it. Right now it's this mimic. I kind of have been fooling around with the special edition covers, but I didn't want. I hate the faux leather. I hate it. I hate. It doesn't sit well in your bookcase. It's hard to see. It's hard to use. It's hard to like. I never understood why people like did that. It's like I just don't understand. I'm like looking if I have any. I really don't like them. I never liked the faux leather book special editions, but I always liked something like this. Also, it also, for what it's worth, it's not that expensive to make. But this stuff is expensive. Like, there's only so many things you can put on the cover. This is it. This is the maximum amount. I can't put on any more without putting it through the press a second time because I asked them for more. They're like, that's it. You're done. You used up as much ink as like there's only what is it? There's six inking stations. So there's the 4 colors, and then there's the foil, and then there's the UV. So we got as much as we can actually, and it's really cool. Look at this. They even sent me. This is what it looks like when you get it printed. You can actually see the process, which is kind of neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
That's cool.
Like this is it being printed normal. And then this is when they actually add the UV. This does not have the UV. This is just the gold foil. And then they add the UV at the end. So it actually goes through. That's why it's expensive, because you actually have to put it through the printing press 3 times. And it gets very expensive when you have to do that. So that's the thing. Like we really go out of our way, and maybe you don't know it. Maybe people just think, oh, all books are the same, and they're just like, no, we really go all out. I always get the best paper, the brightest paper, the best inks. Like I make sure, like it's called like Gold Bond. It's the most expensive paper you can get for books without like getting to special. It's the same paper they use in art books, and that's what we use. Our books are also insane because of that. Our books are crazy thick. Like this is a 300-page book, and it's 1.5 inches thick. It's much bigger than any other book of this size. So things like that. It also weighs like freaking like 4 pounds. So it's it's like if you're gonna pay for it, and I understand it. I'm trying to make sure that you're getting a really good value for your books, and in the end, it only costs a little bit more, but you end up getting a lot more. Anyhow. So if there's any more questions and fusions, feel free. But I want to switch to dragons because we have Hannah, and I'm going to put you on the spot, Hannah.
Oh, dear.
Are there any Fae? Well, see, so let me back up. So we did a vote on who wanted what type of dragons, and the most popular one was the fairy dragons.
We didn't even need a vote to find that out.
No,
we just had so many people who were asking us when we did the 45 dragons before. They said, why is the fairy dragon that exists in Pathfinder and D&D, why is that not in here yet? Oh. And that there was like 10, 12 people like right away. And back then we were not as big of a company, and not as many people were asking us anything, but they were always asking that. And we just kept saying like, look, so I love the fairy dragon, but it's not a true dragon. It's not the type of dragon that has a young, an adult, and a great worm. And this book is about those types of dragons because that's how the lore of it works. And so people are like, "Aw," and I was like, there has to be a way. And so the way is now there's a family of true dragons that are related to the Fae.
Yay!
But not only that, there are dragons, but the Fae dragons are like these baby fake dragons. They're like, what are they?
Yeah, well, fairy dragons are now actually called Fae Dragonettes in Pathfinder Remaster. I think the rename of Fae Dragonettes makes it clearer that they're like a mini dragon and not like something akin to a red dragon. So I think that's a good name change from Pathfinder's sake.
Well, they feel less like dragons and more like fairies shaped like dragons. Which one are you leaning more heavily on? It's the fairies, so you gotta, make that clear.
Right, well, those are fairies, but they're dragons. They're real dragons. They're the full deal. They're fairy dragons, but they're
which we
dragons.
love to see.
And are there actual fairy dragons? I'm not as familiar with the world of Fae as either of you, but are there famous...
What do you mean by are there actual
famous fairy dragons, like name dragons, like in the world of fantasy or literature? Because I'm trying to think that I don't know. It's like,
Well, that depends on what you mean by fairy. Because in some places, in some stories, fairy is the world of elves and dwarves and witches. And in other cultures, fairy is this enigmatic place that you don't see behind the veil of it all. So it's kind of hard to say.
Yep. It completely depends on how you define the word fairy.
Well, what's like Beowulf? What would that be?
Like, it depends on who you ask. I think most people would not consider Beowulf to be a fairy tale per se.
But other people absolutely would.
Yeah.
And it has a dragon that breathes fire and has poisonous teeth, and it's a formidable foe. And someone did mention the Jabberwocky, of course, from Alice in Wonderland. I'd say that's the most traditionally Fae dragon we have. And Wizards did turn it into the Jabberwock, knocked off the Y for one of their latest books.
And Paizo has had the Jabberwock as the a type of dragonish thing created by the Fae, and like literally created by Fae lords to destroy you as well. And yeah, Beowulf, even though I was saying most people wouldn't consider it to be literally a fairy tale, you could. And Grendel's mom is basically some kind of evil river Fae.
Yeah, some kind of
whether
water
or not you
monster.
consider Beowulf a fairy tale, right?
But like, I just pulled up the Jabberwock for 5e, and it doesn't even technically say like Fae dragon. It just says huge dragon, typically chaotic evil. It doesn't, and even in its little description, doesn't specify fairy. It just feels more Fae because it has strange different abilities compared to other dragons.
Right. Whereas the Pathfinder one says it was created by the eldest Fae lords of the first world in order to, as part of a collective creatures known as the Tane, and they do not reproduce normally, but are instead created by capricious and mysterious entities to devastate a country, continent, or entire world to get revenge for some perceived slight made against them by a single mortal. Yeah, that tracks.
So what
It feels like reasonable.
So
You insulted my outfit, so your world is getting this Jabberwock.
It's relatable.
So this is what I'm thinking. So we have the 4 books, and the battles, we invented all of them, but battle we really invented, like probably a little more me than Mark, just because I was literally basing battle dragons off of the Terminator and Klingons and and aliens, like hunters, like traditional hunters from movies and television that are very famous, and they're basically hunters, and they're based off those hunter archetypes.
Yeah, Steven gave me all these movies,
right,
and is like, let's make a family out of this. And so I kind of mixed them in with the classic martial classes. And so Steven's like, what about the Predator movie? And the hunt people down. I was like, okay, and Rangers are also a class in Pathfinder and D&D. So we'll do this hunt dragon that's good at hunting things. And so that's just sort of how it works. We have the rage dragon that just goes on a barbaric berserk rampage, like the barbarians kind of do too.
Yeah, that's like a Conan.
And the dueling dragon, which is like a swashbuckler or a duelist or something, and they want to do a one-on-one fair fight.
Yeah, that's like Hirogen. That's kind of like the Hirogen from
it is,
DS9.
or like any of those Errol Flynn swashbuckling movies that you mentioned as well. It's either of those two things.
Yeah, but the point is,
then you've got like all of these sort of classic tropes. The mercenary who will fight for anybody for the right price, who's just a professional.
Yep, that's
like
actually one of my favorite ones. He's just like, he fights. He just wants to get paid, man. And he's just a mercenary. You know, he'll fight for anyone. He might have a code of ethics, he might not, but that's his
just
thing.
War Duke as a dragon.
Yeah. So that's what that was based off. Then we had the Misfits, which we also invented, and the Misfits were just like, it actually started because my favorite, Mark knows where this is going. My favorite class from D&D is the was it the Red Mage, the
Wild Mage?
the Wild Mage, and I just love the Wild Mage, and I was like, we got to do a Wild Dragon like that, just crazy like misfit magic that just it doesn't
even started by saying we need to do a wild dragon that are like the most social dragons that just like to party. That was like, Steven, we already made a family called the Wild Dragons, the most social dragons who like to party.
That's right.
Here they are. And then he was like, oh yeah, okay, but I think there's something different in here that's like completely not the same. Because I want ones that are more like wild magic and less like partying. Then, how can we do that? And so Steven sent me to the drawing board to be like, how can we make something that captures that feel? And so these are 5 dragons that, you know what? Most dragons are pretty majestic. They're kind of with it. They have it together. Misfit dragons are not. They're not. Sorry, they're the misfits of the dragon world. It's not because they're weak. They actually have powerful magic.
No,
in some cases,
strong.
too powerful.
They're too strong.
Their magic is too powerful. The bionic dragon's necromantic energies inside of them are too strong. It starts eating their own body up, and they have to replace it with metal parts. The phase dragon is just shifting and phasing out and in so much that they can't even control where they are. And the doom dragon is just getting these prophecies just like sent into their brain. All of them are negative. Most of them are true. Some of them are not true. And so like they're really a downer because like everything that they hear is like bad news, and they're usually right too, so you should probably listen to them. But how can you live your life listening to this dragon? It's only warning you that everything's going to be bad.
It's the Debbie Downer of dragons. It's actually not. That's actually from Babylon 5. They had an offshoot, and it's actually one of the best magic items I ever saw, and it actually was part of the main story. It only lasted 1 season. It was supposed to be a 5-season series. Not Babylon 5, it was the spin-off of Babylon 5, where the captain got this box, and the box would tell you the truth on any question you asked, almost always. But you didn't know when it wasn't. But the times it would lie, it would always be absolutely devastating. It knew the full future, and it would tell you the truth except when it wouldn't, and when it didn't, it was really, really bad. So I was like, a crusade. So I love that concept, because it's like, what do? Do you ask it? Do you not ask it? Then if you get it, do you use the information? It was fascinating. But it was a cursed item, because what happened is actually in the beginning of the show, this guy gave it to the captain, and then he immediately killed himself because he was like, I'm free, and then he like kills himself. I'm like, damn, that thing is dark. So I'm like, we need a character that does that. We need a character that is that box, but in character form. So I thought that was cool. And then the other one, the phase dragon.
There's 2 others. There's the morphic one that is metamorphic, that his body is constantly shifting with out of control polymorph magic.
That's the wild.
And
that's
of course, the wellspring is just a classic wild stuff happening everywhere.
Well, and then the phase dragon is actually like Penelope from Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh yeah, Vanellope.
Vanellope, yeah, from Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph. That's what that one. So we invented those two, and we knew where the basis was. But I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you a secret. I don't know much about the fairy because it was just automatically added. And that's not my job. That's Mark's job. Now your job, Hannah. Like, what will be some of the, like, how are you, and you're writing the lore for the world dragons, like from the world of these dragons, not just, so we have lore for each individual dragon, and then we have the lore of them within their society. So what are you basing it on? You've given us an outline. I haven't even looked at the outline. So I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are.
It's not done anyway.
Oh, I know it's not done, but I just wanted to talk it through and just what you were thinking. I'm just curious. Like,
so I haven't fully decided on a lot of like base elements, but whenever I think of the fairy realm from like kind of any modern literature that you run into, it has a few courts, of course, and you have a court dragon in there, so it only makes sense to have some courts in there. The typical ones are based off the 4 seasons, so fall, spring, summer, winter. But a lot of people will do other courts. They'll add in other types, and I don't know if I want to do that. If I do, I'm going to have to be really careful because I get a lot of really great comments on my own videos of people's own courts that they've made, and I'm like, oh, that's so good, and I can't use that. So I don't know. I might add some other courts, but that kind of depends.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it is open because we asked Hannah to write content that works for Alucard Battlezoo's world, but also could be easily used in anybody's setting that has a Fey realm in general. And so, like, in that sense, having, because so there's seasonal courts, there's the Sealy and Unsealy courts in some cases. And for sure, we have content with seasons in it. In fact, the grand prize winners for Battlezoo Bestiary Elemental Storm is a set of 4 seasonal performing Fae. That's what's going to be on the cover of Elemental Storm, is going to be 4 court seasons, maybe having a battle of the bands or something like that on the cover of the book. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but there's the autumn one is the one that won, and then they created the other 3 seasons as part of the grand prize.
Nice. Well, when I think of, like, more specifically than courts, of what the Fey world looks like, I think one of the typical images is everything's big, like giant mushrooms and strange magics and a certain level of unpredictability. And I think of the Feywild, to me, I feel like it has, like, it, yes, very whimsical, but there's a part of it where its scale and its strangeness has to be a little terrifying, where, something might seem safe but isn't. As simple as that. Just throwing in those elements that are different enough that it's going to throw someone for a loop when they enter this space. They're going to come across something big that might scare them at first because of its size and strangeness that ends up being quite pleasant. And so throwing in those little hints of strangeness, I think, is very key for the Fae.
I'm looking this up. The fairy courts. I'm looking up. There says there's 6 major courts, or there's so many different courts. I guess everyone has a.
It just depends on who or where you're dealing with it, and so as far as we've defined courts in Battlezoo Ancestries, we did not lock down which ones there are because we said that there are a lot of them. So it's not just that there's 2 like Sealy and Unsealy or 4, but there might be 4 that are like major. Or there could be that there are, maybe there's a seasonal set of courts with the seasons because Alucard has 4 season deities, but maybe there's a set with the 5 energies, which Alucard has like a fire, air, earth, water, and like void deities.
I was going to say void
as well.
We have the 5. So
yes, so there could be 5 courts like that are maybe rivals of the 4 seasonal courts, and there could be courts based on the 3 storytelling deities. The hero, the villain, and the trickster are 3 deities that were, like she and some of the courts themselves, were derived from mortal stories. So in some ways, so or maybe she came before the stories. Nobody really knows how they got all interwoven and together. But the point of the matter is that we've left it open. And Hannah, you're going to get a chance to say some of the first things about this. And we're hopefully going to make it so that fits in the dragons and fits with almost anybody's adaptation of how they're doing their fairy tale world. Maybe there'll be a few elements that you tweak a little bit in your setting because your setting is set on Triaxis, the planet that switches between summer and winter only every like decade or so. Or something like that.
I would definitely look. I'm sending it now, but because the battles of Indigo Isles, when we go through the gods, because there's a whole family tree in there. Because I do like a little consistency and having like the 5 realms that we actually already have. So, and they could
and I mean we also have 20 elements of the eld, right?
Right.
So there could be there could be courts that are based off of those, but fairies do their own things, and it may be different or similar in certain ways.
Yeah. But it's rather than just pulling it out of nowhere. Because we do have the primordial energies, which are the 5. So that's the thing. It's interesting when you have to have 5 of something. Because it's like 4 of something. It's like 3, pretty easy. 4, pretty easy. 5, 5 is always the weird one because it's like, what do we have that's 5 of? It's like, kind of. Oh, I'm going to do an experiment.
Okay.
Mark.
What's the experiment? Okay.
And Hannah, give me a number. Okay. A random number between 1 and 100. Go, Mark.
E.
No, has to be a number.
That's a number.
Integer.
Euler's
integer
constant.
Between 1 and 100.
Oh, okay. 100.
Okay, Hannah, what's yours?
27.
Oh, nice. She almost did it. So there's an experiment that came out. If you ask someone what a number is between 1 and 100, the most commonly said number by a mile, because you would think it would be a flat, like, even if you asked thousands of people, it's not even close. The number one number that people say, it's to a vast majority, is 37.
And when Steven says to a vast majority, no, he's right that 37 is the most common, is not a vast majority.
It is.
Majority has to be over 50%.
Okay, fine.
And a vast majority has to be much over 50%.
Well, yeah, but it's also...
the one that is the highest amount, you've got these 100 little bars on your bar graph, and the highest bar by a significant amount is 37.
Yeah,
which
but actually
I also
all
knew,
the primes,
and therefore I said 100.
Well, you knew that, but all the primes, but it's actually all the primes.
Yes, prime numbers are higher.
Yes.
Because people think it's only random if it's weird or different. And Hannah actually said 27, which is a composite number. It's a very, if you follow the idea that Fae follow the rule of 3s in a lot of things, it's a very Fae number because it's 3 to the 3rd power, 27.
But I just picked my birthday. Not my birthday, my age.
Oh,
okay, there you go.
Well, but the thing is, if you, I could show the video. It just came out. It's fascinating because it's part of nature as well, and you can even use the number 37 to pick out like the best of certain. It's incredible. It's like ingrained in our brains in ways that we don't even understand, and it's ingrained in nature. And now you see it, you'll see that it's everywhere. That it also, because it's a prime, 7 is very popular. Like the other numbers that are very popular is like 7, 27, 3, it's like 77.
Yeah, people love 7. If you have a small number, like 1 to 10, they pick 7. Yeah. Like that's
or 3. Actually, it's not true. They will
as a random number. It's not true.
Yeah, it's
I thought
3.
7 was the most.
It's 7 and 3 are the most.
One.
Those are two the most. Those are the most common. Because there's all these magic tricks.
They're the only. They're the only 2 odd. Primes other than 5 that's in there, and 5 people just don't think of as being very random. No one picks 5. It
has to do with primes. It's fascinating. But anyhow, I just watched it and I was like, it's like rethinking my whole life, because I was like, they're showing how it actually works in nature, and if you need to find something random, you can use. I won't get into it, but if there's like 100 restaurants and you're trying to find the best restaurant, you could actually use the number 37 to figure out through an average of which restaurant was probably one of the better ones. by random choice. And I was just like, oh my God, because life is not random. It's like ingrained in our DNA in ways we don't understand. It's really interesting. See, someone picked 73, which is also extremely popular.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the more popular ones. But the point is that if it really was like if you're rolling a dice, it should be 5% for every number. In this case, 1% for every number. It's not 1% for every number. It's not even close. It's actually, and it doesn't matter the culture. That's the other crazy part, is that culture is irrelevant. The numbers still are the same. So anyhow,
I feel like videos like that lead people like, this is what gets you a cork board with red string moving across it.
I'll send it to you. It's actually one of the
It's
most
all connected.
Well, yes and no, except this was based on it's actually it's with Vinstrom or something. I forgot the name of the channel, but it's one of those very popular YouTube channels by scientists that everybody loves. But with that being said, Courts of Fae and numbers. They do love their numbers. They do love the numbers. So
That's true. Significance, whereas you wouldn't expect any.
Mm-hmm.
here we go.
Yeah.
Here I'm gonna do the.
There's also sometimes the counting thing that's also seen with vampires or fae, where it's like they have to.
Let me
count
show
all
you
the grains
something-
of rice, or they have to count all of a certain thing before they can chase after you.
Oh, by the way, so this it already has almost 5 million views. Here's a video.
And like one person mentioned, since we're on the idea of rules, that the Feywild does just have its own logic. Like there are rules. They're just not what you anticipate. They're not what you're used to.
Yes.
Here's
But
the video on the number 37.
Yes, the video on the number 30. Actually, that channel's really fast. I like that channel a lot because they go through all these science problems and with physicists and scientists, and they explain using just regular logic like how those things work in our society. It's really good.
And
It's cool.
these are like the kind of things that make you think of the weird fairy rules. And it's like, why is reality for fairies? It probably is even more real than it is for us, because 37 is not really that important for us. It's just the way that our brain thinks that it's random.
That's actually I went off
In
on
the fairy world, maybe if you roll a d100, it comes out as 37 a lot of the time.
My point is, when I like to, it's a tangent, but not really. It's that whenever we write lore and history, I like to have it lore that's completely random, that you literally just make up off the top of your head. I feel will not work, quite frankly, because it doesn't have any connection. There's no connective tissue with our own lives, whether it's subconscious or not. And I feel like things like this, where you use numbers and within our whether it's primes or Fibonacci sequences or things like that, you'll subconsciously be more connected to it and find it more interesting than if it's just random gibberish.
Well, nothing it feels is truly original either. We have to ground new lore in something of ours. I think about the Fae. There's some cultures or stories where the Fae can get drunk off milk rather than alcohol. We didn't make up a whole new substance to connect to that fairy world. We just put a new rule on something we already had.
Well, what's mana then? Because mana's all over the place. What's mana?
Well, it comes from mana, which is in the Bible. It rained down from heaven in order to feed the Israelites when they were wandering around in the desert for a really long time. And so it was this divine substance. And then there were 40 years that had to kill off Moses before he could quite make it there, because he did split that one rock incorrectly that one time.
He had to wander the desert, and he would see the promised land.
People needed water, and so he split it with his staff.
That's right.
And he didn't remind everyone, folks, before I split this with my staff, I want you to know that Yahweh is actually splitting it. It's not me. And so it's like, that was too prideful. So he's got to wander. He's got to die before he can see it, but
he
not
can
enter,
see it,
just
but
like
then he dies. He dies before he can enter.
Which to our
Even
modern
cooler.
world feels very Fae.
Yeah.
Broke a rule that others wouldn't think is all that important.
Honestly, maybe, the God of the Old Testament, like the OG Fae Lord, with all these strange rules and all these different consequences and be like, you buried those people? Oh, I'm going to make an earthquake to swallow you up. And now there's going to be a plague. Like, yeah, I can see it. I can see it.
I'm getting very philosophical now. Happy Easter, everyone. So, you're going to be writing some Fae. You're very excited. You're going to get to make some dragons. And then we're going to get Val on the stream because Val's also writing some... Well, she's not writing Fae. She is writing...
Doing the Leshy Dragon.
The Leshy
lore.
Dragons. Which... Is there horror in Leshy?
I think Val is going to figure it out because there can be. And
Okay.
you know, like sometimes fungus fleshies are a little creepy looking.
Oh, they're terrifying.
And also these areas are about them being in the world and where you go. And so some of the fairy places are a little dark, and some of the places that are natural places in the world could be like a haunted forest or like a cavern that's pretty dark. And I think Val is going to show us those darker places and not just the bright, happy talking flowers or something like that.
Let me tell you something. I don't know if you did it on purpose, Mark, but the hardest creatures in Pathfinder, by far, without question, are the plants. Okay?
Really?
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't think so.
Oh, Lord, yes.
Lesser death is easier than the plants?
I'm talking about at overall, on average, not individual. Whenever we have plant fights, there's always someone going down. In fact, it's become a running joke in all of ours, is that they see plants, they run. Because they're like, oh my
Really?
God, we are going to die.
Your group's level 16, 15 now?
No, I'm talking about, it's more at the lower levels. And you know who did it?
Because I was going to say, if they're 15 and they're having trouble with plants, they should bring...
Not now.
They should bring
just need to
hard
get good
wilting.
at that point.
Hard wilting or dessicate from Remaster,
Actually,
because that is destroys plants.
You're right. They actually did desiccate recently, by the way. And they did. It actually worked really well. It was destroying them. But
it does like double damage against plants.
No. Don't get me wrong. But at lower levels, those bushes, because you know what we ran? We ran Jason Bullman's adventure. His
oh, well, you know what? That's not plants.
It's both.
That's a different story. That's a
both.
different story.
It's both, because I've run plants since, and there's a lot of plants at low levels. You know why? It has to do with the fact that...
Steven.
Yes.
There is a category of things that are very dangerous for all characters, and possibly the players of those characters, and that is Jason Bowman adventures.
Oh, you're right.
Okay?
You're right.
And any monsters that were in the Jason Bowman adventures, those are what the category of monsters that are dangerous overall. Because you're going to say that the Blood Ooze was not dangerous to groups that don't kite it? Or that the other things in that adventure weren't dangerous? There was some really dangerous stuff in there.
Wait, let me tell you why plants are so dangerous in Pathfinder in general.
I'll listen.
Fight.
It's not a fight. And I'm going to tell you why. Fall of Plaguestone. There we go. Fall of Plaguestone. Fall of Plaguestone. Because this is what happens. There's a part in Fall of Plaguestone where you're going through a field and then the bushes attack you. And you're like, they're bushes. How hard can they be? So that's the first part, is that people always underestimate how
it's
hard...
the expectation.
Right. They're like, it's a plant. And then they're immune or resistant to things like slashing or piercing. So that's even worse. So it's like, wait a second. Now, of course, if you have fire, you can just wipe them out, because that's what... But they didn't have fire, of course. So they were just getting destroyed. They weren't doing good damage, because one of them was like a monk. They were, they had like all fighting weapons, so they couldn't really do... Or they had like bows. So they're not doing that much damage. These things are getting up on them, hitting them with piercing, grabbing them, trampling over them, and like doing tons of damage. And they were getting wrecked, man. And this just kept happening. Then you have like the vines. Then you have the ones that the Venus flytraps to swallow holes. They're getting swallowed whole left and right. They're like, this is terrible. And now they all have PSD from plants, because whenever they see a plant, they're terrified.
Okay, but that sounds like it was Fall of Plaguestone.
Oh, it also was, you're right, it was Fall of Plaguestone. That's where it started, but it then continued in Extinction Curse, because there's a lot of plants in that, and they got messed up with the plants in that one. Pretty bad, actually. They got some. There's a one where they get hit by all of it. I think it has to do with expectations.
Is your group just generally not as good at dealing with slow-moving opponents that are easy to kite, but that if you decide you're just going to run up next to them are a little dangerous next to you?
This was not my core group. This was the secondary and the tertiary groups. So my core group, they would kite it. They X-cross like crazy. They're basically they coordinate to always be flanking, but I don't know if plants can even be flanked because they probably have like all around sight. Or they would just figure out they're one of those people, like you look at their inventory list, they're like a video game. They have 100 pieces of inventory, and it's like plant, alchemist, fire. Like they have it. They have something for every situation, so they'll be ready. And then they pull it out, and they got it, and then they'll kill the plants. So
are they using magical means to carry all that, or are you playing Pathfinder or 5e with this? Bag of holding?
Yeah, there's bags of holding in Pathfinder. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have bags of holding. Also, they are the kings, so they have every single feather token known to mankind. And for this, when they did the prison break mark, and they're on the ship, they're like on this prison ship, he threw 40 feather token boats. And he was like, everybody gets a feather token. He just turned the bag inside out. And it's like, everyone gets feather tokens. And then the boats appeared. And then there was a mass exodus and chaos. And it worked brilliantly. So they're nuts.
That's hilarious.
That actually worked really well. I was like,
feather token, those weird swan boats.
Yes.
They're I just have a lot of funny stories with those. So one that's on topic for Faye. There's this fairy swamp that is inhabited by like the ghost of a nymph queen in a Pathfinder adventure. And so my group had a system for magic item crafting in Pathfinder 1 that was not the default one. The default one was just like you get double money and you're just overpowered if you have it. But that instead had like chances of failure and a chance of secretly being a cursed item. So this was very important because Linda's character made 2 swan boats, one to take people into the swamp to meet with the ghost of the nymph queen and one to leave the swamp. And the one that went into the swamp was fine. But little did she know the one that left the swamp was a cursed item that was cursed to work for part of the way, and it was faulty and then it would break. So on the way out of the haunted swamp, it just sank into the swamp. And everybody did not have any...
We built the castle. And then it swung. And then we built another castle.
Exactly, the Monty Python.
And it sank.
That sank into the swamp. But the third swamp boat stayed, and that's what you're getting, lad. The strongest swamp boat in these islands. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Stephen. But it was so funny because the party did have precautions in case they got tipped off of the boat or had to fight in the water, but they used most of them on the way in. And they thought they were just leaving. It was going to be fine because there weren't any other encounters and they were low on those resources. And several people almost drowned because they fell out of the swan boat. And everyone gave Linda shit for her swan boat sinking them.
The thing is, feather tokens are very, very useful. They're very secretly incredibly powerful if you use them right. What's the one? The one that turns into a tree?
Yeah, the tree is
the
super
tree
strong.
will break campaigns. That breaks campaigns left and right.
I've seen it used in like 4 or 5 different ways. One of them was a squirrel, awakened squirrel, or maybe they're reincarnated as a squirrel barbarian who brought it because squirrels have like in 3.0 had like a racial bonus of +8 to hiding when there's a tree. So he would make trees so he could get a +8 to hiding. I saw people create an invasive species so that they could use tree stride because they knew that that only they would be able to stride to the ones from that invasive species because you can only stride from that exact species of tree to another copy of that one. So they had a network that they kind of had control of and the enemies couldn't use, all with tree feather tokens, Steven. So I agree with you.
Tree feather tokens, except it needs dirt. But the close second is Wondrous Figures, because whenever someone gets swallowed whole, they're like, swallowed whole, like, take out my wondrous figurine of Griffin and summon it. And then it's like, oh boy. It's like, it's about to get very messy in here. So, it's like, they do that all the time. They have, you know what it is? If you've been playing D&D for 47, 48 years, you've seen it all. You just know, the tricks, man. You just know the tricks. You know how to get out.
I am incapable of having done that, Stephen, but I do agree with you.
Oh, yeah, sure,
even having played much fewer years than that, with the same
I'm
group,
saying,
they'll catch on to
you
things.
play for 10 years and you start to learn the tricks. These guys have learned tricks that but it also makes for very interesting sessions because I have to keep challenging them. And they're very excited when I come up. They never get upset when someone dies. They don't get upset. They're excited because they're like, a challenge. You know, they're like One Punch Man. You know, they're like, oh my god, an actual challenge, something that will actually challenge me. I'm like, they're very excited. So what do you get if you back? Oh, there we go. So what we're gonna do is, because not everyone has this book, and this is the Ancestries Dragon. This is the original book. And we're reprinting
That's
it.
the 5e.
This is the 5e version, but we're going to be doing it for both Pathfinder and 5e. And we're going to reprint it with some updates, some erratas and stuff. And then we're going to give you for free this book with the special edition cover. And you won't be able to get it anywhere else. And that's it. So that's it. Like, if you back it, you get it. And if you don't, you won't. And if you don't want it and you already have the book, then sell it on eBay. You'll make your money back and then some. So there's no reason not to get it. In fact, that's a good way. It's like, get it and get the book and then sell it later and help it finance you getting the other four books. So there you go. So, Hannah, why Faye? No, seriously. No, why Faye? Why is it Faye Wild Fiend? Why is it Hannah Faye? Faye. Does your house have little mushrooms all over the place? And you have little... No, really?
I actually don't like the mushroom theme. My friends love it. Oh. And I get them little mushroom gifts. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. I don't have a good reason. But
then what about your which Fae items do you have in your house then? Do you have any Fae? Do you have little decorations?
The gifts that people have given me.
Oh, there you go.
And of course, minis. I've had someone who likes the channel send me a whole bunch of minis, which has been amazing. A false Fae. No, I'm doing the unexpected. Keeping you on your toes. But why Fae? It's partially because I didn't know a lot about D&D when I started DMing. So I had played in a very basic campaign. Which one was it? Dragon of Icespire Peak. Our DM changed a lot about it, so I don't really know what the core book is all about, but basic starter campaign for new players. And the Feywild was very much kind of a part of it. We had a little encounter, but we never went in there or really talked to a lot of Fae. But so then I'm opened up to what is over there. And I've always been fascinated by the Fae based off the literature I've read and the older stories. And so my version of Fae is from the medieval to the Shakespearean timeline is the Fae I was really interested in. And then, add in some Neil Gaiman, some modern authors as well. And that was my image of the Fae. It wasn't as whimsical. It wasn't as fun. And so when I started running the first campaign I've ever run, Wild Beyond the Witchlight, about 2 years ago, which we've finished recently, I didn't read the whole source book first, and which I've learned to not do again. It was a mess. But
you're like,
but we had fun.
I didn't run it. It was a mess.
It was, but you know what? It was a fun mess, and we had a good time. But I think I just didn't understand what the Feywild looked like in this world, and I've grown to like it for what it is, but it was kind of a disappointment because it didn't have that like older feel to it, which is really what I was looking for. And so when I started this channel, I knew nothing about Fae in D&D world. And so every single video, unless it's something that I've already read from like modern stuff, I'm just researching every video and learning as I go. And that's kind of what the channel was doing. It was a chance for me to learn and play around and try and build up a world. And then now we're here.
Now we're here.
Now
Awesome.
we're here. So I do like the very whimsical D&D Fae. I just don't like it as much as my original mental image. And I've sort of learned to separate the two and enjoy both for what they are.
So you like the Fae that like eat people.
Yeah.
You like the evil Fae, the nasty ones that
I mean,
just
they're not evil, but they're not good because they have their own morality, and
Yeah.
it's very alien to us. They will do their own thing. Like
I like the Fae.
the Faes that
Le
eat.
Bisclavre? Is that what you're
Oh,
looking
I
for?
actually was not going to say Labib Sclavre, but that's a good hop. We did talk about it on another
We
thing.
did,
I was actually going
yeah.
to talk about Labib in chat. Said, have you watched the Gargoyle series with Shakespearean Fae and things in the story?
I've been
Which
told to.
It is I think we may have talked about that also on the last time that you and I were on the show
We did.
as well.
And I
And-
know that I've had this, I finally picked it up yesterday. I've been told Stormfront by Jim Butcher.
Oh,
I've been told
some
to
of the
read that.
later books
it's
have
okay.
Fae.
It's okay.
It's okay?
You're going to
It's
want to
okay.
get to
Don't say
Winter
that, I just
Night.
got the book.
Yeah, you're going to want to get to Winter Night if you want to see Fae courts being really wild in it, but they definitely do show up a certain amount. There's some limitations to the way he describes female characters a little bit in Dresden Files, but there's some fun stuff in there too.
It's okay. It's okay.
Um,
Is it published?
People love those. No, those books are incredibly popular.
From
There's
2001.
there's book series, there's TV shows like that. That's people love that series. It's a fine. I
the
didn't.
TV series nobody liked.
No,
from
no,
Dresden
like
I
the
Files.
didn't know
TV
there
series,
was one.
but they made one.
The tabletop RPG was pretty funny though, because there's these nerdy characters in the series, and so they have like them writing the tabletop RPG, and they write like
No, it's
comments in
fine.
the notes that they ask Harry, and because it's like Harry's okay with revealing this information because he figures that people who know about the dangerous stuff that's out here from playing this RPG, they'll be like more equipped to deal with it if it comes to murder them.
I'll give you something to read. I'll give you put that away. I'll give you the real.
Inform me. No, I can't. I already.
Started
He literally
it.
has it. She's partway through.
I just got. No, that's the receipt.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. Have you read Fables? Do you know what Fables is?
Like Fable Haven?
No, Fables, the comics, the
comic
book
series?
No,
the comic
I
series.
have not read any comics.
Oh,
this up.
Fables. Fables is legendary. It's so
Ooh,
good.
that looks pretty. I like the art.
It's finished too. This is all you need to know is that every single fable that's ever been written on planet Earth, every fable exists in somewhere in the multiverse. So like Jack exists, Cinderella exists, Baba Yaga exists. Everything ever exists.
It sounds like that TV show
Well, guess what?
that's based in like
Guess what?
it's called Storybrooke or something.
Those two TV shows.
Once Upon a Time, you
Once
mean?
Upon a Time, they were
That one.
both based on Fables.
Okay.
They went the other way around. Fables came out and it was so popular, and rather than them trying to get the rights to Fables, they made not one but two TV shows loosely based on Fables, and then went ahead and basically took the same concept and made there was two shows based on this. So this is the original source material. It is fantastic. You will it's long too. I mean, it's like, but you can just get them now because it's finished up for quite a while. What makes it interesting is that the more powerful the fable is in our world, because there's actually multiple Earths, is that the more powerful they physically are. So the strongest people, and they all know each other, and some of them get along, some of them are at war. So like whatever fable is really powerful now is really powerful in on Earth. And they exist on Earth. It goes heavy into Fae. It goes heavy into the Fae world, but I mean really heavy into, goes into like philosophical questions, meta universe questions. Like it's not just, oh, I have this power. It's no. It's, you'll like it. I can't see how you wouldn't, to be honest. So it's fantastic.
It
The
sounds
Wolf
like a lot of
Among
fun.
Us is the video game. Had the Telltale games, by the way.
See, Steven, I thought you were going to use that pivot from Gargoyles to point out to everyone the Gargoyles also came out for Year of Legends today. So it's like a
too.
weird connection from things, which
Yeah.
also is inspired by lots of different legendary gargoyles that are out there. It's not exactly D&D gargoyles. It's not exactly Pathfinder gargoyles. It's not exactly Disney's gargoyles. It's its own take on gargoyles, but it has a little bit from a lot of those places.
Yeah.
I definitely think Shakespearean, when I think of Shakespearean Fae being adapted in a modern thing, I'm not surprised people in chat have been talking about it because Titania, Oberon, and Puck are all over the place. And it gives that sort of sense that it's like they just have their own point of view about what matters. It's just like, yeah, you guys are all going to be kicked out and homeless with nowhere to live. Why? Well, this is my house. And you were squatting on it, and I'm here now. So you all have to go. You broke the rules. You shouldn't be in Avalon.
Yeah. By the way,
Or just like, we're taking this child from their parents. Why? Oh, it's got like powerful fairy magic, possibly. So like, should be taught by someone who knows what they're doing.
so if you do read Fables, there's spin-offs. Just read the main Fables. Just Fables 1, Legends in Exile, and then just go from there. It's fantastic. You will love it. I guarantee it. It is absolutely incredible. The story, the concept, the story's really good. The bad guys are really interesting, and just the whole way the world works. Like my favorite story, which isn't giving anything away, but I'll just say is that Cinderella is an assassin and spy. And she's
She should be.
as well. Not only she's assassin and spy, she's the best assassin and spy in the history of like the world, because, and they basically live as long as their story is still relevant. So if their story fades, they fade from power. And Cinderella has been alive for hundreds of years. So, and they go to explain, it's like, oh yeah, most assassins, maybe have 20, 30, 40, 50 years to own their craft and get good at it. She's like, I've been doing it for 300 years. It's like no one can, beat me. And she is literally the world's greatest assassin. Like,
think about it. She drops a calling card and she gets her mark to chase her down through all sorts of areas to her choice of killing location, trying to find her with this calling card.
It's really
cool.
It
should be easy for her to finish someone off as they're checking for the glass slipper.
It's really cool. It's really cool. It's very interesting.
It sounds like the movie Elf, how people have to believe in Santa or his sled doesn't work.
Well, that's the whole concept of this, is that that's only an aspect of it. But when I mean every single fairy tale, I mean every. And they go into other cultures.
In the comics, do they have like baby fables that are for like modern urban legends that are like the weakest because they've only been around for like 5 years?
Yes, anything. Because they have a whole chapter on like the Three Pigs. They have a whole chapter on Arabian Nights. They have the whole like they'll talk about like Slovakian fables. Like if fable exists on Earth in any way, shape, or form of any time, then those people exist somewhere in the multiverse. There's a multiverse of 1 billion planets, and some of those planets are literally just nothing but that fable. But Earth is the original point, and that's the origin, and that's where all the fables come from. And then there's even this war of the fables, of the creatures against each other, and then they even try to bring like new lore and fables into society so they can fight.
So alien life forms are the stories we made along the way.
Yes. Yes. It's just trust me. It's really, I mean, if you look it up, it's one of the most popular.
It has, I'm just looking at Amazon, it has 4.5 stars. That's pretty solid.
Yeah. It's also, it's not just that, it's the story's really good, but then anything, like Jabberwocky, it's in there. Like you name it, it's in there, and they get it in too. That's the cool part. It's not that it's just that you have all the cool names and the cool people. They get them in, and the story is fascinating. The witches are some of the most. The drawing style is really good.
I noticed immediately the art is.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
It looks.
And they change the art depending on the fable, so it matches their arts of like the art style of that fable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's really good, and the best part is it ended. So like there is a beginning, middle, and you don't have to. They don't have any more, so it's over. But I would definitely check that, especially you would love it. It will take you a while. It is quite long, and I guarantee these books have been out for so long. You can get these used. Like you'll be able to get. You don't have to buy them new, or you can get them digital. It's not that hard to find. It does take a little while. It's one of those books that it takes a little while to get into because you're trying to learn the world, and there's a lot of introductory. And there's a bad guy, like there's an actual super bad guy that's like basically taking over the universe, like a Thanos type person. And the main part of the beginning is to figure out who this person is, because they don't even know who this is, and they don't know anything because there's just these nameless armies that are just taking over the meta universe, and they're trying to figure out who this is and find the person and kill them. And that's like
discover their enemy first.
They have to find out because they don't even know, and that's part of it.
Are they trying to erase the old stories to get rid of people who can oppose them?
Yes, that's part of it, because the stories are power. So that's what I said. It hurts your head after a while, but it's fascinating because they really think this through. And I think what made this so much better than others is that they didn't just sit there and say, oh, let's write this down. Like they really thought this through in detail, in extensive detail of like, okay, let's write the rules of the universe and follow it. And they can't break the rules, and they try very hard not to. So it's really good. The side stories are good too, but don't just start on the main, and then there's a million spinoffs. Because some of the characters, like Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk, is actually one of the most interesting and funniest characters. Like he's really funny. So they have a whole side series of just him, just like Jack Tales. So stuff like that.
Yeah. I'm looking at, there's a box set, 20th anniversary.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the Book of Amber. Do you mean the Book of Amber, or which book? Or do you mean there's a couple of books of Amber?
I mean, like, it looks like it's all of them.
Oh, no. I'm talking about someone actually said Book of Amber. They recommend.
Oh, it's a comment. Okay.
A comment wrote the Book of Amber.
The Book of Amber.
Oh, do you mean the Chronicles of Amber? Because that's the
that's
great.
A different.
Yeah,
that's
the Zelny. That's different.
Books, the Great Book of Amber, the Complete Amber Chronicles.
Right. Well, there's the Zelny series of the
Zelazny.
How's it pronounced?
Zelazny.
Zelazny. And he has. I read those when I was in like high school. Those are really good books. And in fact, Mark, you know how geeky Carnegie Mellon was. The name of our public servers were Ghost Wheel. So that's how geeky. Like they were all from the Books of Amber, like all the names of our servers. So
George R. R. Martin apparently called it the author a storyteller without a peer.
Yeah, those are very famous books. There's the Nine Princes. Yeah, the Nine Princes of Amber. And there's 2 books of 5. It's basically a series of 5 and another series of 5. And they also are. They're like the princes of the universe, and there's a family, and they have cards. It's Fae. Read that too. Those are great. Those are famous. Those books have been around forever. I mean, you could also do.
I have so many tabs open now.
Riverworld. I'd say Riverworld is also up there. Did you read that one, Mark? The Riverworld saga?
I didn't.
Oh, really?
I did not read Riverworld.
Riverworld's good.
Artificial or heavily terraformed planet. Everyone who's ever existed has been restored to life.
Riverworld, yeah. Philip Jose Farmer. That's like it's wherever you die. So every person who's ever existed comes back to life on this world where there's a river. Including like, and I mean everyone, like Benjamin Franklin, you name it, they're there. And they have to figure out how to get along, and they have no technology, and it's fascinating. These are very 70s sci-fi fantasy though, which means it's heavy on the philosophy. So that one there actually is a mini series, and it was pretty good. And that one's on it was on the Sci-Fi Network. I don't know how well these hold up, but these are all books I read when I was a kid. So I haven't read this one in a long time, but I have you know what I have I do have the Riverworld graphic novels, which are just as good. And this all ties back to Fae, because this is all Worlds of Fae, just different aspects.
Different versions of it?
Yes. Yes.
I think the oldest fantasy I've read, I'm currently reading The Sword of Shannara.
Oh,
And so I just looked it up. That's 1977. About halfway through that.
When I was in high school, this is how old I was. When I was in junior high, everyone, and I mean everyone, was carrying around the Sword of Shannara. And I love the Sword of Shannara. I've read the Sword of Shannara, Wishstones. I read all the other books. I read all the Shannara books. Yeah, it's just a rip-up of Lord of the Rings. I think
it's different enough.
I don't care. I liked it.
What? You can't have more than one adventuring party on a quest to save the world?
Well, keep in mind, back then, those type of books were very rare. So it was because they only had one other thing to really compare it to. And that's
it's like
Lord
saying
of the
every
Rings.
farming sim is Stardew Valley.
Well, but nowadays...
In 1977, there weren't a lot.
There weren't a lot, right.
Okay.
So, right, that's what I'm saying. It's like
I
back then.
read this book, too, when I read it when I was in, I think, 5th grade. I remember because I brought it with me when we had to go to outdoor ed, which was just a real pain of a thing to have to do. But at least I could read the Sword of Shannara, except for that because it was like the windows were just like letting in mosquitoes and didn't have anything to help with the humidity. Like the pages of the Sword of Shannara got messed up by being there with me. And yeah, that's when I started reading it. So it was long after it came out, obviously. But yeah, it was an interesting series. It had some interesting ideas. I feel like...
I mean, I haven't read it in 40 years. So
I feel like it kind of went on for a while.
Yeah.
And then he eventually got to the point where he just like really liked killing off lots of the characters.
Oh, he kills off a lot of characters. Yeah, it's pretty brutal. It actually gets pretty brutal later.
It depends on which one. Obviously, like some of the early ones, it's just like certain characters sacrifice themselves. But in the later books, there's this one where they like go to a death island of killing you.
Oh,
and like everybody except 2 people get killed on the death island of killing you.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to tell you a bit of a spoiler.
Okay, I accept.
But it's not that much of a spoiler. The world of Shannara.
We've been saying it 3 different ways.
I know.
I said Shannara. Someone said
I say
Shannara.
I say Shannara. World of Shannara.
I say Shannara.
I say Shannara.
I say it the way I listened to part of it on an audiobook,
Sword
and I'm
of
saying it the
Shannara.
way he said it because I was scared I was wrong.
And that's
when
how
I
they
was
also
a little kid, I said Shannara, but then a bunch of people said Shannara, and I think the TV series said Shannara, so
really?
I started
I thought it
like
was Shannara.
changing myself.
Well, here's the thing: is the world of Sharna right now? Now I'm conscious of saying it. Is
Shorten it.
Earth
The world of Sorcerer.
Do you know that?
Oh yeah, I watched this show years ago.
Oh, okay.
So I kind of, and it's actually I've liked knowing that. I love a spoiler.
It's actually better.
Tell me how everything ends,
Oh,
and then I'll
really?
enjoy more looking at how the build up and how we're doing it and how we're working towards that. Spoil anything for me.
Yeah, it's it's Earth, but it takes place on Earth like 20,000 years in the future. And in fact,
like everything's a result of nuclear fallout.
Yeah, basically. And that's actually one of my favorite books. I forgot which one in the series, but they go to Manhattan, and Manhattan's like still there, but it's like in total ruins. Oregon. So they go to Oregon. They go to like a city. They go to like some major city, and I loved that book. I was like, oh my god, that is so cool, because the place was just devastated, but it was filled with like death stalkers. It was just like a place of absolute death. And they went through there. It's great.
So I just listened to Terry Brooks say it, and he says Shannara.
Okay.
So it's different than either the audiobook or the television show.
Shannara.
But also like the way his accent sounded, I think he would be more likely to have used like those kind of like nasal vowels as well. I don't know, but I just Googled it and I found a video clip of him saying, like, naming the, not saying that this is how you have to pronounce it, just being like, I started writing the Sword of Shannara, and so there you go.
Yeah. Well, I read it.
All right.
I read it when it came out in the 70s, where all my friends were reading it, and then he started to write sequels, and I was just reading them as they came out. Like, it's like the Scions, and then I read his. I just kept reading them, and they kept coming out.
Yeah, because it's the sword, then the elf stones, then the wish song, and then the Scion series.
Yes,
is the one that's after that.
Yes, I like the Scions. I don't remember.
And then after that is like the Voyage of the Gerald Shannara, where they go on the boat and to like the robot land.
Yeah, it really got weird after that.
The jokes about how to pronounce it are really funny in the comments right now.
Oh yeah.
There are countless parallel worlds, one for each way people say Shannara.
Man.
Hey, Steven, if you think that those were a weird way to read something by Terry Brooks, how about Magic Kingdom for Sale?
I love Magic Kingdom for Sale.
Those are so weird.
Magic Kingdom for Sale. Sold! I love those books. I read, was it a trilogy? I read all three.
Steven, it seems like you read all of the weirdest books that I read when I was a kid that I'm like, I don't even know what I think about these books now that I'm grown up. Because you also were talking about that one with the game that Piers Anthony wrote.
Anthony, Split Infinity.
It was not Xanth.
Split Infinity.
Not Xanth one. The
Split Infinity.
The Apprentice
Photon
Adept series.
And Phase.
Yes. Yeah, the Apprentice Adept series. You read all the weirdest books that I read when I was a kid, and I'm like,
keep going, baby.
This is weird.
Keep going. I've read them all. I've read everything. I read everything. I'm a voracious reader. Have you
Magic
seen
Kingdom
my
for Sale
bookshelves?
Sold is just also very weird. It's also isekai, I guess. From
that one's great.
It's ancient isekai.
Robin Asprin?
It's just a dude from Earth who like sees an ad to buy a Magic Kingdom, and he's like, "What the heck? I'll buy it." And then it's an actual Magic Kingdom.
Have you read the Myth series by Robert Asprin? I read all those.
I did not.
Oh my God, that's a great series. It got really bad later, but I'll take you even one further. I read the Fool series by Robert Asprin, which I also liked quite a bit.
I don't even know Robert Asprin.
Oh, come on. Yes, you did. You silly person.
I don't.
Oh, well, the Myth series.
I thought you were saying Robert Asprin, but let's see. Robert
Asprin.
Okay.
His series, the Myth series, it's okay. There's actually, I will say there's comics. The comics are way better. The comics.
Oh wow, he was illustrated by Phil Foley.
That's why
I know who Phil is.
Yes, that's why I picked it up. And the comics are completely illustrated by him. That's why it's so good. Just get the comics.
I want to take you to one of those like really big secondhand bookstores with like a fantasy section with all those old worn paperback books, and I want to just take you through the shelves and have you pull for me.
It's called my house. Seriously,
house.
That is like no. I could. Yeah, here we go. Mything Persons, Little Myth Maker, all those. Yeah, I've read all those.
Mything Persons.
Yeah, well, they're all puns. That's like the whole thing. That's like the Xanth series. They're all puns too. Another fine myth misconceptions. Well, because also he edited the Thieves World series, and that's how you knew it. But he also did Fool's Paradise, which is Fool's Company, which I also liked quite a bit. And then he died. So
in 2008, this says.
Yeah, I know. I was like, well, I guess we'll never get one of those books ever again. So. Yep. So let's see. Oh,
there was a board game in 1990 about Myth series. Yeah. Wow, I just didn't know about this at all.
Yeah. Oh no, the Myth series it's pretty funny. It's actually pretty funny. It has some pretty interesting. The world building is really cool because there's a planet that's just a bazaar. Like the entire planet is just a flea market. And that's actually one of the coolest parts is like it's just a flea market and it's the size of a planet. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Someone in chat mentioned Robert Silverberg, who I mostly know because he was the editor on a compilation anthology called Legends that had a whole bunch of really famous people wrote short
Lord
stories.
Valentine's Castle, yeah, all those I do know. That.
Like it had Stephen King was in there, and it had a Wheel of Time, New Spring was in there, and it had Terry Pratchett was in there. George R. R. Martin had a short story from Song of Ice and Fire called like The Hedge Knight or something like that. Ursula K. Le Guin.
Ray Bradbury is like the king of short stories. Was he in there?
I think he was dead when that came out, but he totally is the king of short stories. But this was like a anthology that came out, I want to say probably like somewhere around 2000. Let's see how well I am at figuring out the date. Oh, it's 2001. I was very close. So it came out in 2001, so it had a lot of famous authors who were alive at the time in 2001 did it. And other than that, other than being the editor who collected those and having one of the stories that was in there, I don't really know Robert Silverberg very well.
Here, Mark, I'm going to log into my Goodreads and tell you what books I've read. And then
that has to be a formidable page.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm trying to log in right now, and I have not seen. I'm trying to see my page. I've actually
all right, everyone. We're all going and following Mark on Goodreads right now.
Oh.
Not Mark, Steven.
Oh,
sorry.
David.
I was like, Mark, please.
Sorry.
I've actually, let's see, I've put in everything I've ever read too. And I mean everything. Like I had Hamlet in there. I put it all in there. Let's see.
I think I did that before. I don't know how well I've kept up with it.
I'm just looking here. Of course, I like Way of Rings, Harry Potter. Sorry, the Way of Kings, Harry Potter. That's all in there.
They should make the Way of Rings that's like a combination of the Way of Kings and the Lord of the Rings.
King Killer Chronicles, of course, by Patrick Rufus, who'll never freaking write the third book. Damn him. Stop doing YouTubes and write that third book.
I really, really like the prose in that first book, but I
beautiful,
couldn't read I couldn't keep going until the second book because
it drags. It really does. It's beautiful,
I just felt
but it drags.
that the main, I guess I don't even know if I want to call her the heroine, but like the love interest character is so clearly antagonistically trying to stop him from achieving anything, and he just doesn't see it.
Yeah.
To me, from the first book, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe spoilers don't tell me, but in the second book, she's shown to just accidentally screw him over all the time by leading him away to different things. But it just is like
it gets better. The second book is much better.
It was a little aggravating, so I didn't want to keep reading for that reason. But the prose is so good,
beautiful.
And I love the idea that naming things is giving it power, and he doesn't realize it.
Of course, we have the Song of Ice and Fire, Mistborn. I mean, these are all standards. Saga is in there, of course. All right, here's one of my absolute favorite recent books of all time, Project Hail Mary. Holy crap, is that a good book? Look that up if you want to see. That is one of the highest average ratings for books. It's
4.7 on Amazon.
It's so good. You'll read it. I read it in a day.
Martian, and it was like one of those books. I'm not a huge sci-fi person, so I didn't expect it, but one of those books that you cannot put down.
I read
like
Project Hail Mary in one day.
At midnight.
No, yeah. Project Hail Mary, you'll read in 1 or 2 days.
Oh,
I read it.
It's 4.5.
So good. It's so good. This is all I'm going to say. It's like, okay, The Martian is like, okay, this guy gets stranded on Earth and Mars, and then he has to figure out how to get home. It's very similar, except this person is stranded on like another universe and has to get home. It's like, what?
Raise the stakes a little bit.
It's way worse, and yet it works, and it's really interesting. It's really fascinating.
I don't know if you read Artemis by him, but I was not impressed.
I did not read Artemis because I heard it was not good.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I don't bother. If I have a couple of friends and we all read the same things, and if one of them says don't bother, then I don't even bother. I've got Lord of the Rings, The Green Mile, which is actually one of my absolute favorite. I've read everything of Stephen King. It's like his favorite.
I'm reading his book Fairy Tale right now. Speaking of Fae.
Oh, I love Fairy Tale. I actually like The Eyes of the Dragon way better. I love
this is my first Stephen King, so that's all I can talk about.
Oh, well, I'll give you the order after you're done.
I feel like I need you to just make a list.
Well, I have too
many tabs open right now.
Well, what I'm reading right now is Robin Hobb, And the problem with Robin Hobb is there's one series and it's 16 books, and I'm up to book 5. But each of her books are 900 pages, so it's taken me a while to get through these books and they're really good. But oh man, are they
The type
long?
of book that like you wish Goodreads would count it as like 3 or 4 books. Like, come on, I get my numbers up there. This was work.
That one's so good. Well, this one's a mad ship.
Sassa's Apprentice was only 434 pages.
She started small, but then she got, because that's when she started, and then she did the Harry Potter thing. You know how the first 2 books are short, and then she got popular, and she's like, "Oh, time to start making them 900 pages," and that's exactly what she did.
It gives authors permission. They know people are going to read it, so now they can put as much as they want in there. They're not forced to cut down as much.
Yep.
Yeah, I see. The Ship of Magic goes up to 667 by the second series.
And then look at Mad Ship. Look, I'm up to Mad Ship. How much is that one?
Okay, hold on. Mad Ship is the second in that series, and that is 400 pages. Actually, shorter.
Oh, really?
Yes, 400 pages. And then Ship of Destiny is 592 pages.
Huh. Well, it's taking me forever.
Although that's still a lot of pages, Stephen.
Well, I read The Expanse. I have Lock and Key. Lock and Key was pretty good too. Myth Adventures, Hunger Games. I'm skipping some crappy ones. Got Wise the Last Man in here, of course. Walking Dead. I put everything in. Warbreaker. It's basically everything by Brandon Sanderson I've read.
Also have not read Sanderson.
Oh, Sanderson. He's oof. Well, what
does that mean?
Because Stephen likes him, but making weird sounds.
The Way of Kings is my favorite book of all time. I've read it 3 times, and that book is actually so big that they printed it, and it's the biggest book you can possibly print and bind, and they cannot 1 page more, and they can't make it any bigger. And in other countries, it's 2 books because they can't do.
It's 1,001 pages in the hardcover.
Well, the softcover is 1,400 pages in the softcover.
Okay, I'm seeing a thing that says that it's 1,001 pages on its own.
Oh, maybe they redid the sizing.
It's 1,001 pages in the hardcover,
right?
According to its own book details.
Oh, I meant the softcover. It's softcover.
Oh, yeah. Well, soft covers can always be different. And then Words of Radiance is 1,080. So
I know. Must have found a way. The one. That's the one I think is the biggest. No, I think that one's the one that's the biggest ever. It's one of them. So the secret of these books is each book is a trilogy. It's actually 3 books in 1 book, and he's writing 10 books. So in the end, it'll be actually 30 books. And he says
Oathbringer was 1,233, and Wisdom of War was 1,232. So he must have found some way to make
whatever it is. Then my memory's wrong, but it's. You can look it up. He wrote about it. Oh no,
you're right. The paperback was longer.
Oh, okay.
On all of these, or wait, paperback was longer on Way of Kings by a lot, 1,258, but it was about the same on the Oathbringer.
Oh, people are talking about Shogun. I have read Shogun. I'm actually watching it now. I love Shogun. It's it was my favorite miniseries of all time growing up. And Shogun is massive, and It, which I read. I loved it. Loved it. See, The Reckoners, just really good. I got Wise, The Last Man. The Rift War Saga by Raymond E. Feist. You ever read that, Mark?
I've heard about it. It was one that I heard about, but back when I was younger, there weren't a lot of series. That was one of the ones that was on the periphery, but that I never actually got into.
How about Ready Player One? You've got to read that.
That's a good book.
I've
read that one.
All right.
There you go.
Read Ender's Game. Any of the big sci-fi.
Ender's Game, yeah. Ender's Game. I read that. Yeah, like that. Well, Ready Player One, because I'm from the '80s, so for me, it's like I knew every reference. The only ones I didn't know is when he talked about the giant robots, because those were like super hardcore, esoteric Japanese robots. This is the only references I didn't really get, but everything else I knew right away. And I knew immediately when he had the opening, when he had the hill with the skull face. I was like, oh, that's the Tomb of Horrors. Like, I didn't even have to. It was like, of course it's Tomb of Horrors. That's all you had to say. Gideon the Ninth, which, man, everyone loves that book. And I'm like, it was all right. I don't know. I didn't think it was that great. Here we go, Chronicles of Amber. I have all the Chronicles of Amber in here. Restaurant at the End of the Universe. I forgot about Douglas Adams. You read those, right, Mark?
I did.
Hitchhikers. Everyone's read Hitchhiker. You've read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right, Hannah?
I
No.
have, yes. That's the only one I've read by him, but I have.
Oh, okay.
But only after I met my husband. I had never tried it, and then he fixed that problem immediately.
Oh, yeah, you got to read that one. Heck, I'm so crazy.
I mean, it's not like it was in a locked filing cabinet in a disused lavatory with a sign on the door saying "Beware of the leopard."
Oh, look, I even have Charlotte's Web on here. That's how much I have Phantom Tollbooth, which, by the way, is still one of my favorite books of all time. Wheel of Time. I got all that crap in here.
Mark, were you a big reader when you were younger?
Yes, I read. So, I mean, I guess I said it when I was in 5th grade. I was reading Sword of Shannara. So,
I used to, like, at lunch, I used to just sit and read. Like, everyone else is, like, hanging out, and I'm just reading. I would literally just read all the time. The Belgariad. Okay.
I know, Stephen, you've told me that I should read that because you said that it's very important to understand the philosophy of the guy who likes money a lot.
Yes. It's fascinating. The Belgariad is really the David Edding series. That was like the first real big.
It's the only thing I know about it other than having heard of it generally in the background is from you saying that.
Oh, really? The Belgariads. I don't know how well it holds up, but that was like the series everyone read when they were kids. Like that's all we would talk about. The Pawn of Prophecy. I don't know if it's any good, man. But then I got weird. His Dark Materials. You ever read that? The Philip Pullman books. Like the Subtle
My
Knife.
little brother did. I saw the movie for the first one.
It was terrible. And then Harlan Ellison. You ever read Harlan Ellison? Repent, Harlequin, said the TikTok man. Any of those? Nope.
Never heard of these.
Oh, Harlan Ellison. He's only the most influential science fiction author in the last 100 years. So
he's only like the most important.
Well, here's the thing. He died a few years ago, and everything of his is out of print. And in fact, there was an article I just read a couple days ago about this is saying, here's this guy. He's one of the most influential writers of all time, of all science fiction of the 60s and 70s. He's written some of the most popular science fiction shows. There was a story of Terminator was based off Harlan Ellison, like all these.
Wasn't he famous for suing?
He sued everyone.
The city on the edge of forever.
Oh, he sued. No. He sued everyone. That's all he did. He sued everyone because here's the problem. Here's the fascinating thing about Ellison. Now remember, he was writing in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I think even the 40s. So, and he died. He's a bitter man. I met him and saw him speak probably 20 times easily. And he's nasty. I mean, he was a nasty, mean guy. And he wrote short stories, and he wrote everything. When I mean everything, he wrote everything. So he sued everyone because someone would come out with something and then he'd say it was based off my short story X, Y, and Z. And if it was even sort of based off of it, he was right. And this is the thing. He eventually would win a lot of these cases because the Terminator movie, he sued them. Even though he's like, because it's loosely based off one of his stories, and he won, and they actually have him in the credits in the beginning because of that, and they would just pay him off because it was getting to the point of he wrote too much. He famously won he sued Marvel Comics and won, and then Marvel Comics had to send him every single comic they ever published forever for the rest of time for free. I forgot, it was part of one of his settlements. I mean, he's fascinating. He's a fascinating character.
So then I wonder, I mean, he obviously made a lot of money. Does he not have someone in charge of his estate who could maybe put stuff back in print?
No, his wife died. It's his wife, his fifth wife, actually. She died, and then he died. So who is actually doing it is. So did you ever watch Babylon 5, Mark?
Yes.
So Harlan Ellison was a consultant for Babylon 5 with who's the guy who wrote Babylon 5?
Gareth Michael Scarcraft?
Yeah. So he and Ellison were very good friends, and that's what the article was just about, is that he is going to come out with he's going to make sure all of his books get republished, and he's going to try to get them all out. That's what the article was about.
Michael
Straczynski,
different person. I was thinking of some RPG author.
Michael
Straczynski. I knew it was something that went mainly by the middle name, but I was totally and the last name started with S. A middle name of Michael, but I was totally off.
Yeah. So Michael Straczynski was very good friends with Ellison, and he basically said that he's going to try to bring all of his books back. And if you want to read the craziest book of all time that will like blow out your brains, is let's see, I'm looking up Michael Straczynski.
Ellison voiced in this Pirates of Darkwater, Mother Goose and Grimm, Space Cases, Phantom 2040, and Babylon 5.
Yeah.
And appeared in The Face of the Enemy on Babylon 5.
Yes. James Michael. I'm trying to remember how he's pronounced it. Hold on. So he wrote an autobiography, J. Michael Straczynski, and I think it's called like Growing Up Superman. And he had the most horrific childhood in history of like all time. And he's now like a very famous, popular, successful writer, producer of TV, and so forth. If you really want to realize how good your life is, read his biography, and you'll be like, wow. And this guy, like, you're becoming Superman. My journey from poverty to Hollywood. So, 4.9 stars on Amazon. Give you an idea. It is brutal.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's brutal when you read this. So, yeah, he did like Thor for Marvel. Like he's pretty influential. So, yeah, he moved 21 times from the age of 0 to 18. Can you imagine?
Yes.
Yeah, it's fascinating. He wrote Sense8. He wrote Babylon 5. He created it, and then he was a little bit of a control freak. He wrote every single episode for it was like season 4. He wrote every episode. Okay, and that's back when they did 26 episodes a year, and the episodes were 46 minutes long. It's impossible. And they would shoot once every 10 days. So he would have to write an episode. He would have to write 26 episodes, 46 minutes long, once every 10 days, which is impossible. No one does that. He's the only person in history to ever do that, by the way. So I can just keep going, man. I think I gave you enough. 22. It was maybe 22. There was 26 because like Star Trek was 26. But I don't know if Babylon 5 was 24, 26, or 22. But he wrote the whole thing. It was nuts. Anyhow.
Prolific.
Yes. Sort of like us. See, Mark? He is my my muse. He's what I try to do for Roll for Combat.
Your hope is to write so many small RPG products that you're just in a position to sue everyone else in the future.
That's actually not a bad idea.
No, Steve.
Yeah, I know. I'm talking about J. Michael Straczynski.
Oh, Straczynski,
yes.
Not Ellison.
No, not
okay.
Ellison.
Okay.
Oh, that's bad. But the problem is we use OGL, so you can't sue everyone.
Yes, that's correct, Stephen. There's numerous reasons that this is not a good idea.
Yeah, no, I want to do. Yeah, but keep in mind, things were different back then because they would steal from you, and then there was nothing you can do about it. So he was ahead of the time because he was just protecting his rights. You should look up. Harlan Ellison was visited by the Secret Service so frequently and the FBI that he knew their agents' names because he was constantly getting harassed. Look at this thing. Like when he joined he joined the army. He has an amazing story of like how he joined the army, and his very first day there, he gets in, and you have to actually get sworn in to be in the army. And he walks in and they put him into the kitchen to start peeling potatoes. And he's like, what the heck? He's like, he just got there and someone just threw him and he's this Jew from Brooklyn, and he's like in Mississippi, and he starts peeling potatoes. He's doing it for like all day, and then like the sergeant comes in and yells at him or something, and like tells him to do all this stuff, and he couldn't take it anymore because he was there, and then he punches his sergeant in the face, and then his sergeant was going to like send him to the stockade, but he wasn't sworn in, so there was no power to do it. So his entire career was based on this one incident, that if he was actually sworn in and then punched it, he'd be in the stockade in jail. But because he wasn't sworn in, wasn't actually and he was a civilian still, they had to treat it differently. And then one of the people he was peeling potatoes with saved him and brought him into another aspect, and he became a writer because of it. Tell you, these are really interesting stories. So anyhow, so dragons, it's doing really well. Check it out if you want to play some dragons and see the brain behind it, which is mine and Mark's, and we're insane, or at least I'm insane. Mark's pretty sane. I'm nuts, but it's like Abbott and Costello. We need one of us to balance each other out. So
I'm the Casterly, apparently.
You are. You're
the Marquis of Civility.
You're the straight.
You're the Amon, the Lord of Revelry.
Yeah. Did you just figure that out? Did you just figure that out, that I'm the crazy one? So.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily use that word, but
crazy.
I think I may have known.
Or are you the inspired one?
You're the really exciting one. You're the one who's always laughing in the little emoji, the cartoon emoji of you.
Oh man, someone. I think Juno came in late because they want an introduction of all the new dragons that are coming. But we kind of did that already. But if you go to the Kickstarter page, you can see them. Why don't you finish by giving a little overview, Mark? Because I have to feed my dogs and then go to the airport. So
I can finish by giving a little overview. That is what I will do. So I will read off this text that I already wrote about all of the different kinds of dragons in an exciting voice. Soar into the realm of the Fae with Battlezoo Ancestries Fairy Dragons. Join the dragon researcher Calazandrax on a journey to discover 5 new true dragons from the Fairy Dragon family. Inside, you'll find alicorn dragons, horned dragons with a connection to unicorns, allure dragons possessed by the otherworldly beauty of nymphs, court dragons enmeshed in the otherworldly politics of the courtly fae known as she, mischief dragons with the incorrigible soul of gremlins, and pixie dragons with a love of pranks and humor. With 5 new dragons playable as player characters, 20 dragon stat blocks, tons of lore to include these dragons in your game, and the option to expand with stretch goals. The power of the Fae will soon be a part of your horde.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then the next one. Long live the misfits. Some dragons are powerful and imposing, rulers of any domain with unshakable majesty. And then there's the misfit dragons. From Battlezoo Ancestries Misfit Dragons. The magic infusing them is powerful, but it's not under their control, leading to mischief and mishaps. Bionic dragons are overwhelmed with necromantic energies, causing them to replace their parts. Doomed dragons receive predictions about the future, always dire, but only sometimes true. Metamorphic dragons are constantly changing their shape and abilities. Phase dragons blink in and out of existence at the strangest times. Wellspring dragons produce surges of random magical energy. With 5 new dragons, well, it says the same thing. And you can wave your misfit flag with pride. Then next, explore the secret Garden of Dragon card with Battlezoo Ancestries Leshy Dragons. Each dragon is connected to a type of plant or fungus, including arboreal dragons with the might of an elder tree, floral dragons with the beauty of a flower garden, harvest dragons with the bounty of a vegetable field, kelp dragons with the aesthetics of a colorful reef rife with seaweed, and toadstool dragons with the tenacity of a cavern full of mushrooms. You can channel the bounty of nature at your fingertips. Then lastly, burst onto the battlefield and let slip the dragons of war with Battlezoo Ancestries Battle Dragons. Each dragon is connected to a particular combat style, including duel dragons who engage in one-on-one duels, hunt dragons who hunt the most dangerous game, mercenary dragons who sell their services to the highest bidder, rage dragons who enter a berserk battle fury, and warlord dragons who lead large squadrons of other troops on the battlefield. You can conquer all who stand before you by fielding dragons on the battlefront.
We were talking earlier about Holy Grail. Is there a shrubbery dragon?
Well, I think that the
Strawberry
dragon would probably be part of like the arboreal dragon family.
Okay.
There's kind of there is a dragon. It's
You
like
mentioned
part
a bush.
wood.
They might have a resistance to all physical damage except herrings.
Hey man, there's that thing is that we have that there's like one of our which was one of our monsters that's like weakness is axes.
Yeah, a lot of arboreals have that.
Yeah.
Like I haven't looked closely at the arboreal dragon yet, but I wouldn't be shocked if it was in there.
There you go.
That was weak to axes because it's a tree and you cut it down with an axe.
It's weak to axes. It's not just. It's not what weak to slashing or piercing. Axes, like literally
chopping.
Just axes. Hatchets.
So you've been chopped.
They don't like being chopped.
That's right.
Advantage on intimidation checks.
So
More or less.
people asked us to go do more details on each dragon. So maybe we'll get each of the authors because there's a lot of authors for this book. And here's the thing: there's only one of them is male.
So if you're not counting the 5th edition conversions, and you're not counting me and Steven,
I'm not including counting
or
you.
the stretch goals. You're only counting the core book
I'm
stuff.
counting the core
That's
books.
correct. Jason Keeley is the only male author of Misfit Dragons, and he is writing both the original and the 8-page expansion text.
But
Whereas Jessica Catalan is writing Fairy Dragons and Hannah is expanding it. Jessica Redicop is writing Leshy Dragons and Val is expanding it. And then Sen HHS, she is writing the Battle Dragons and expanding it. Correct. So that is correct.
There's only one thing ladies really want, and it's more dragons.
That's right.
I have a lot of female friends who love dragons. Like that's their things. Dragons and vampires. Oh, mark that down, Mark, for next year. Dragon vampire.
Vampire dragon, vampiric dragon. I mean, yeah. Who wouldn't want a vampiric dragon?
There we go. I like that. So that's something else. I'll tell you a big secret. Here's the secret to no one. And since everyone here who's been around for 2 hours, is that if this is successful, we're going to do this every year. We'll have new families, new dragon types. Maybe I'll even ask people what type of dragons they like. Ooh.
By every year, we mean we will do it again. And then if it's successful, we'll do it again. Which,
well, every year.
Obviously, it's not an infinite cycle of dragons.
Until
proven otherwise.
Well, eventually you might run out, but I don't see how that would happen.
No, there's so many ideas that we even literally had an entire set of dragons that almost made it into this set.
That's true.
So
I forgot about that.
We have a wellspring of ideas. So as long as people love dragons, then we can keep doing it. And we can learn from this form factor. People kept asking when we made gigantic books, be like, guys, your books are too big. I just want slimes, or I just want some of this stuff. So Steven listened to all that feedback. He put it together. He tried to figure things out. And so we did this instead of one gigantic book that will literally block a bullet for you. It is going to be 4 smaller books so you can buy just the dragons that you want. And we're testing that out. And then Steven gave just a huge discount if you buy all of them. So it's kind of like the best of both worlds, because a little cheaper, like getting one book if you buy it all, a little closer anyway. And then it also gives you like the pinpoint option to pick the ones you want.
Yeah, because
so any of the dragons that didn't make it in, were any of them part of that arboreal family?
No. So the Leshy dragons with the arboreal did make it in.
No.
The family that didn't make it in, I don't think I'm allowed to say what it is.
Don't say it.
I just wanted to make a chopped joke.
Oh, I see.
I was setting that up.
Oh,
I should have thought
don't say
that.
it yet, because
but it's probably going to make it into the next set if this one does well enough, and it's doing pretty well. Like, it's getting towards 80,000. I made one update in advance for this stream, but I maybe should have done 2.
Well,
fortunately, Steven said that we have to stop now, which is good because that'll give me time to write an update for 80,000 about getting crystal and umbral dragons. We already have umbral, but we don't have crystal yet.
Well, these aren't. The thing is, if this was, because people are like, they wanted it as one book. If this was one book, it would have been like.
It would have been enormous. But the thing is, whatever you do, people,
pages.
Steven, whatever you do, people want the other thing and will tell you, because they're not going to tell you, I love your form factor. They're just going to just have fun with it. So when we made one gigantic book, people kept saying, I wish this was split up. into smaller books.
But then someone
because
said,
don't
I
need
wish
all
you made
this
it
stuff.
one book. I'm like,
And now they
well,
say, I wish I made it one book. It's not because it's impossible to please an individual person. It's because the people who wanted the split books are happy now, and
Well-
they're not saying anything.
well, here's
And
the
the
thing.
people who
You're
were happy with one
100%
book
right.
are now not happy that it was been split
Well,
up. That's
I
just
actually-
how it works.
Well, keep in mind is that I wanted to do this as an experiment. Also, it'll be easier over time. So if one year we only release 2 books as opposed to 4, or even if I just
Yes.
want to do one,
It doesn't force us to make.
it doesn't
gigantic
force us
books
to
every
put
time.
20 dragons into one book. That's the
But
thing.
it also means per book you can put in more detail.
Correct. Correct. And in fact, you're not wrong, because since we started talking to you, we added more lore and more pictures and more background. So, even in the last, couple months, we've been adding more to these books.
Yeah, like
So-
the pages that we're having Hannah and Val do.
Right. Right.
That's
'cause we wanted
exactly
more
an example
background.
of extra pages. And if we didn't split them up, we might not have been able to figure out a logistics for adding those pages either.
Oh yeah,
So,
because then it would have gotten out of hand, and really,
it would have gotten out of control, and the shipping cost on an individual book might have been high because it would have been considered like an overweight or some like weird thing if the book weighs a certain amount.
yeah. Well, it's also just comes down to, at this point, is I'm trying to figure out how to do more with less. Is that if we come out with a book and every book had 20 dragons, then I would expect our follow-up to have 20 dragons, and then each one would have to have 20 dragons. And if the book was 350 pages, then I'm like, okay, we're going to do another dragon book, and then that would have to be 350 pages. It's hard to go down. So I'm like, all right, let's do, and I'm kind of preferring this methodology going forward, is that we do smaller books that are more agile, that are still pretty big, that aren't like 300 pages, but 100.
And don't get me wrong,
120.
it's still, they're each almost as long as the original Dragon book.
Oh
was.
yeah.
You figured out both quality and quantity.
You could go old
That's-
school and
we're
make a
hoping.
3-ring binder. So yeah, well,
We're hoping to get the best of both worlds on this,
Well,
but
here's
we
the-
know that you can't always have exactly the best of both worlds and have your cake and eat it too.
I was actually looking into
Mischief Dragon's eating a cake though.
well, they said here 3-ring binder of dragons. I was looking into soft covers. The price between a soft cover and hardcover is almost nothing, and so I was like, all right, then we're just doing hard. I mean, why would you? First of all, I wouldn't do a
soft covers.
I wouldn't do a
It
soft
used to
cover.
be really different, but soft covers have gone up and up in how expensive it is to make them now.
There used to be a significant price difference, like significant. I actually got them quoted, and there was pretty much no difference. And so I was like, well, in that case, then might as well be. I was just more curious than anything else. I will probably never do soft covers. There's a lot of reasons why, because I won't get into it, but I probably will never do a soft cover. So,
I think everyone likes a good hardcover book,
well, yeah.
at least for RPGs.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're doing like 10,
You're handling
12,
it so
32
much.
pages, something like that. So,
Yeah, I mean, you're doing so much with it that you need it to be sturdy.
yeah, I agree. All right, I gotta go. Lots of people are
All right.
bugging me.
I'm gonna write
Go
that
feed
update.
your dog.
I have both my dogs, and then I
Yeah.
gotta go to the airport and pick up my family.
Okay.
So,
Take care.
all right, and we'll probably do this at least by Wednesday. I don't know. We might do
Yeah.
it again. I actually, if Wednesday, we might have a very special guest, Mark, someone you've never even met.
A very special guest. Is it the guest who didn't come last time?
No, it's a different guest that you know nothing about.
I know nothing about
Nope,
this different
nothing.
guest.
You know nothing about this new guest.
All right,
nothing.
it's classic Steven. He won't tell me the guest or the topic, and I'll just be surprised by it.
That's
It's like
right.
our topip is we're roasting Mark Seifter.
Well, we do that.
Find out next time.
We do that every week. So,
True.
so are you gonna say the thing?
Okay, until next time, if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Bye.